Peace of the Saints. I'm here today to break apart the propaganda that has been called news so that you may understand what the truth is unfolding as we speak in the Middle East, particularly with regards to what is called the Iran war. Now, it's curious that it would be the Iran war as opposed to the American war, the Israeli war, Trump's war, Netanyahu's war, or various other ways we could call this catastrophe. But we are going to see if we can find the truth. And I tell you, it won't be easy because there's no doubt that certain groups of people have made every effort to hide the truth. As you watch, I'd be very thankful if you'd be kind enough to watch on twitch.tv/Marquette Devon, as we've not had any troubles with them censoring the content. Let's go ahead and get to this work. I'm going to look at a number of sources here with you, and if you'd bear with me to later in the stream, I have a phenomenal video that I'd like to review with you that I think you'll enjoy very much. It's very insightful, and the expert, and he is an expert who's speaking in the video, strangely, he's doing something rare in American mainstream media, which is he's telling the truth. Yes, he's telling the truth. It's very uncommon.
We begin with the latest from Kuwait, where a suspected Iranian drone has struck a military base. The base housed U.S. and Italian troops, according to Italy's chief general.
So I'm glad terms like allegedly or suspected are used, because there's no doubt that there will be a great many false flag attacks. Israel is the most ruthless country that has ever existed. We've seen instances wherein their soldiers take prisoners of war merely to torture them. We've seen them go up the backside of their Palestinian detainees, one after the other. And it was on video, and the charges were dropped, and many of these individuals were celebrated. So these folks are extraordinarily ruthless. And rather than lament over their behaviors, the best thing we can do is organize and seek to outpace them in terms of their ruthlessness, because the good peoples of the earth must fight. Oh, yes, we must fight. If you haven't joined at peacetothesaints.com, I welcome you to this movement. But anyways, I say that the attack in Kuwait, you always have to verify, was that in fact Iran? Or is that an attempt by the Israelis to bring the entire region into war? What you must understand is that if the Israelis can drive the Iranian regime to attack the oil infrastructure of the Gulf states, then they can thereby weaken those states militarily, of course, because militaries are bolstered by economies. So they can reduce the capacity of those states, destroy their tourism, destroy their commodity-based economy, their oil and natural gas, and then make it easier for the Greater Israel Project to gobble up that territory, which could be inclusive of Egypt, Yemen, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Iran, and much else. So the Israelis are certainly the people that will benefit most, whereas those who will lose will be everyone else that's involved. Marquette, what do you mean? The United States economy is tanking as a result, and they're dragging the world economy down. They're giving further incentive for countries to leave the dollar, the petrodollar. You're incentivizing the Iranians to control the Strait of Hormuz and become the new landlord and charge tax and also force transaction to be conducted in yuan. And you're further distancing the Indian regime, which is a big country that has huge potential. And as well, you're creating a greater enemy in the Russians and the Chinese. And you're exhausting your military reserves. So you won't really be able to threaten anyone with conventional weapons after this, because you'll be bankrupt and you will have depleted a significant store of munitions. And you've revealed that you're not good at asymmetric warfare. Israel, on the other hand, yes, they are using weapons and a lot of money, but it's American weapons and American money and American know-how. So they will be able to thrive. Very clever country. And instead of getting mad, you have to get even. You must do something. And you cannot keep making tweets thinking that your social media posts are going to change the world or save your tax dollars, which are currently being squandered, sacrificed to the altar of Netanyahu.
The unmanned Italian aircraft was destroyed after the drone hit the Ali Al Salem base. Italy's Joint Operational Command says it is continuously monitoring developments. This is a second major.
I think this is probably a positive thing. And it is reminding the Italians that you are not the Romans. You're the Italians, not the Romans. This is a little bit different. And we see that the colonial powers, which is to say the Europeans, the whites, are still up to their old tricks, which is death, destruction, all forms of abuse, colonization, enslavement, theft, and they just won't quit. And sometimes people will hear me say, are whites evil? And this is a necessary hyperbole for us to start to question the behaviors that they're engaging in. And this is inclusive of those who would call themselves Jewish. Because if we do not interrogate that, then we will continue to suffer what now is century upon century of them behaving in ways that make the planet Earth completely unsafe.
The loss suffered by Italy after March 12th, when a missile hit another Italian base in Erbil. The Ali Al Salem base serves as a central logistical and operational hub in the West Asia region for U.S. and coalition forces. Iran says it will intensify attacks on U.S. bases and other establishments after attacks on Karg Island. Iran has previously attacked the Ali Al Salem base. However, it is still not clear whether the drone that attacked the base was fired by Iran.
Okay, and this just verifies that the war is continuing to engulf the Gulf states. And what's really important to understand, and I'll say it here now, this is a world war. Marquette, what do you mean it's not a world war? The whites haven't said it's a world war. You have to wait for them. No, this is a world war. Marquette, how can you say such a thing? Well, I'll tell you. A world war is generally a large military affair that is started by white people, and then they bring in everyone else to stack body upon body. And it involves a significant number of nation states, some of which are quite far away from the original point of conflict. And I think this qualifies certainly as a world war. Marquette, please justify that. Oh, I'd be happy to. You have a situation that was started wholly and entirely by Israel. They drug in the Americans because that's their piggy bank. And they attacked Iran, which Iran is perhaps the greatest nation of our time. We should all praise at the altar, really, we should, because they're the only ones standing up for goodness. And I'd even posit that they're the only Muslims on earth right now. As a nation, they're the only Muslim nation on earth. Everyone else is fake, and I spit on your countries. I spit on your entire countries. That includes Saudi Arabia. It's no holy land anymore. Now, that being said, and Saudi Arabia will be the only part of the Gulf that will survive this economically. Marquette, why is that? Because they have the worship of the Kaaba, which is an idol that people go to the Middle East to circle around as though it's like a holy thing. And I'm just like, well, where's the holiness? Why are these people not saving their Muslim brothers in Gaza? Why are they not doing that? I thought there was a such thing as the Ummah. I thought there was a concept of jihad. I thought there was goodness. Not quite. The reason that Saudi Arabia will survive is because they have an idol there that people go to worship in the Middle East. It's this large black rock. And I cannot show, and I will not show any respect to the Deen of Islam outside of Iran until I see Muslims behaving like Muslims. Until I see people honoring that which is written in the Quran, the example of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. I will spit on your countries. That being said, Saudi will survive because the brainwashed religious zealots will continue going on Hajj and on pilgrimage to Mecca and Medina, and it will continue the tourist economy. But beyond that, a lot of infrastructure will be destroyed, and that region will return probably to Jahiliyyah. It'll return to it. Yes. And now we understand how great civilizations have risen and fallen. Yes, we now have an understanding of why there are ruins in certain places, and it seems as though an entire people disappeared. It's because of wickedness. It's because the wicked peoples of the earth have not been contained. And I tell you what, I will not sit by silently, and I will not sit by and not organize and do something. Yes, I could just be a podcaster like Nerd Fuentes and Candace Slowens and just babble, but never organize. I could be one like Kanye West who calls out the truth but doesn't act on the truth. I could, but I refuse. I'm actually going to get to this work. Yiddy. Anyways, if you haven't already moved over to twitch.com, twitch.tv/Marquette Devon. At this point, it's a revolutionary action. I'd appreciate you if you do so. If you have comments or questions, you can engage those by using the information at the bottom of this screen, and as well, the information that is in the description of the video. May I acknowledge folks supporting the work. Shout out to Shola, writes, peace to the saints. Yes, indeed, peace to the saints. Also, shout out to The Boss, writes, Saudi must not have seen the Greater Israel Project include some of their territory. Truly foolish people. Oh, yes, truly foolish people, a decadent people, a sick people, a dishonest people. Yes, the whole Middle East awash with cash, but completely devoid of morality and goodness. Huh? Yes, Marquettism is for the kids. Marquettism saves lives. You could not call yourself a God-fearing person and watch what is going on, be you Muslim, Christian, Jewish, or otherwise. Anyways, may I acknowledge via PayPal. Shout out to Luis supporting the work. He writes, about to get this run in with fellow saints from my section, Sasson, LA. And that's a beautiful thing. peacetothesaints.com. Join. Connect with your section in person. There's no additional cost. That's our whole point, is to get people together in person in community. Yes, and if you fail to join up with a tribe, you will be victim of those who have organized into tribes. The tribes that are dominating now, we call them governments. Shout out to in their corrupt governments. Shout out to Joshua. He writes, thank you for all you do, sir. Marquette for president. I've been following you for some months now. I will be joining Sasson or Nothing in a real way. And we welcome you warmly to this thing of ours. And I'm not running for president, but I am running for Senate. I'm running for state Senate in Georgia. So we do need to push that information out, and we'll have to learn the political game, because it is a game, right? Unfortunately, it's not a straightforward affair. Shout out to Alejandro, writes, thank you as always for your time and wisdom. I appreciate you. Shout out to the real ones. As we say within this thing of ours, show love to those who show love to you. May also acknowledge Kene. He writes, so many lies coming out from that one group of people in the Mediterranean that we can't talk about. Oh, that's all they know is lies, deceit, and domination. Shout out to Jalen. He writes, peace of saints, tuning in from Twitch. My lady told me if she is infertile, she wouldn't let another woman have my baby, and we would have to adopt. This led to a disagreement. Bad sign, right? That's a terrible sign. That's an absolutely terrible sign. And what I would have done is instantly downgraded her categorization in my head, and then I'd proceed to marginalize her. You see, adoption is a beautiful thing, and I have no problem with adoption. I'm not against adoption, but there's also something beautiful about the good peoples of the earth propagating their DNA. We do need more good people. We need more high IQ people. We need more upright men. We need more of us. So I would encourage each and every one of you who mess with this ism to procreate in great numbers. And it would be a pity. You know, a woman is truly selfish. She's more selfish than loving if she would try to limit you. Come on now. And absolutely hit that like button. If you haven't spent a single dollar here, but you're still watching after 15 minutes, that means that you probably like what you're seeing. Hit that like button. I always remind you all that as a good person, if there's something you can do that benefits someone else, costs you nearly nothing, you should always do it. It's to your own benefit. Hit the like button. It's an easy, simple way for you to help if for some reason you do not believe you have a single dollar, which is invariably not true. But I understand. I too was lost. I too failed to know that abundance comes from here, and being miserly and parsimonious benefits you not at all.
In the US, new US polls show many Americans are...
Yo, and if anybody has Shorty's IG handle or her Twitter, shoot it to your boy. And I'm trying to sliz eye. You dig? I like the way baby girl look right here. I don't like that outfit. Black with the purple ain't really hitting right, but you know, we could work things out.
Worried about the military strikes on Iran. The survey by Quinnipiac University finds 53% of voters oppose the attacks, while 40%...
I always wonder, where do they get this data? I've never been quarried one time. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if it was much higher. But what we can count on is that the majority in the United States, which would be whites, are very sick, violent people. And we've observed this in the history. That is the genocide of the Native American, the enslavement of the African, the marginalization of the Japanese in internment camps, and the way they've treated various groups that have immigrated into the United States. It is maybe in their DNA. So when we observe viciousness and violence being engaged in, we know that it is the direct result of the American Republic and its voters. Pete Hegseth is a complete degenerate, as is Donald Trump, as is the entire Epstein class. Who voted them in and who won't kick them out? The whites. They are the majority. They are the ones who are responsible for what goes on in this nation. This is what you will call a white country. Yes, I am here. Yes, my lineage has been here since before the beginning of the United States government. However, this is a white country, and those are the ones who control economically and politically.
Support them. There is also strong opposition to sending soldiers, nearly 3/4.
And that's because the whites value their own lives at some level. But within the whites, you have subcategories. One notable category would be Jews, right? They try to claim that Jews are not white. It's extraordinary. It's like saying Somalis are not black. Some of the girls may have huge foreheads and, not be the brightest stars in the sky, but we're not going to say they're not black. That would just be a lie. But the whites often say that the Jews are not white so that they can escape blame. And it's funny because they try to shift all of the blame onto these folks, very anti-Semitic, and pretend as though they've been angels the whole time through, as though George Washington was not a slaveholder. It's really fascinating stuff. But anyways, I say all that to say this. They don't want to send troops because at some level they value their own lives. They don't want to see their own coming back in body bags or with limbs missing or their faces disfigured. But the truth is a disproportionate number of persons in the American military are people of color. I think we should just start calling them people and then call whites people without color, right? So Marquettism, you heard it here first. We're people, and then the whites are people without color. So the fact is, and I published a video recently on this very channel, and it talks about selective service and the American draft and, if it would come back and how it is enacted. And in the context of that discussion, it talked about the disproportionate enrollment of people and also the disproportionate enrollment of those who are low income. And this is really critical to understand because in the United States, the people without color have organized it such that they created policies that were essentially racist that made it easy for folks like Donald Trump and Barron Trump to escape military service so that they could send your children to slaughter. Marquette, what do you mean? They allowed for folks who were in university to escape. Well, how would that be a racial policy? Because university is expensive and the majority of the economy is controlled by whites. They had the primitive accumulation. They have most of the money and higher net worth. They can access university in greater numbers. And it's also the heritage of education, whereas the blacks were systematically denied education. Okay, Marquette, well, what other ways did they finesse? You also had these boards that were organized locally that did the recruitment and the drafting. So if you were, say, a family like the Trump family and you were wealthy and influential, you could influence the board. And invariably, the people who ran the board were also white. So political influence would get you favor. And if you were black or Latino or Native American, you didn't have any influence. You better lace up them boots. You're going to Vietnam, boy. So in understanding that, you find that the white races, and I'm going to come out with the code pretty soon, it explains the nature of these people. They're deeply dishonest because they talk so much about DEI when they've been benefiting from DEI for a long time. I also have another video you should check out. It talks about the appointment of Erica Kirk and Melania Trump to positions that they're completely underqualified for. Erica Kirk involved with the Air Force Academy. That doesn't make any sense. She has no military pedigree. Most of her career has been in media. Then Melania Trump, they rotate leadership in the UN Security Council as president, and it's usually a diplomat or someone who has experience in American government. the first lady is not, it's like a ceremonial position. There's no knowledge required. It's not an actual job. And so for some reason, he sent his wife in, who's a foreigner, who barely speaks English and is not terribly bright. And her background is as a failed model. So how does she get qualified to head any body at the United Nations, much less the Security Council? Well, I don't know if you can call it DEI or just plain old crony capitalism and nepotism, but something ain't right. Something ain't right. So I challenge to you fools, if you're listening to me and you are not fully signed up for this movement, you're a fool, because it's in your own personal interests to join up. Why is that? Because I just described to you how our government works. If you're not a part of them, you're going to suffer. You might say, Marquette, well, I'm white. I'm a white guy. I should be good, right? No, my boy, Trump doesn't care about the whites unless you're a part of his family or you're like the 1% whites. If you're an everyday white, my boy, you're in the same boat as everyone else, and the boat is sinking unless you do something.
Reporters say they don't want US ground troops sent to Iran. More than three-quarters believe the conflict could lead to a terrorist attack inside the United States. And
now, let me tell you, again, I remind you that the white collective, people without color, these are the most dishonest beings ever to walk the face of the earth. Notice the language that they have taught these silly folks who are recounting their propaganda, talking about terrorist attack. It's not a terrorist attack. There's a war going on. So if you start a war and you attack another country and they attack you back, that's not terrorism. That's retaliation. That's self-defense. That's war. That's not a terrorist attack. So you have to ask yourself, why is this the language that they use? Why the lies? Come on now.
many also fear higher oil prices.
Oh, no.
Now, the poll
Forget
also
the
shows
lies.
mixed
The oil
views about
prices.
Israel. 44% say the United States is too supportive of Israel, while the same numbers say the level of support is about right.
And again, those are the whites and a couple Indians. Those are mostly the whites and a couple Indians. I don't know how the Israelis pulled that off, but one thing we cannot deny is that the Israelis are very clever people. Truly, we cannot deny that. Shout out to Chancellor supporting the work. May I also acknowledge Steam Rolling. Good to see you again. Shout out to Joe or Josh, writes, Tariq Nasheed is huge on the reparations for FBA from U.S. government. I know you're familiar with him and definitely agree, but / don't see it happening. Would honestly pay to see a live discussion / debate with you two on that. I think it'd be a fascinating discussion for Tariq and I to build. And really, that would be something that we need Tariq to get on board with. I'm very much so open to it. I've reached out to Tariq in the past to set up the debate with he and Myron. There are a lot of details about that I did not share with the public, and I'm going to share them. I have not even a roast. I just have a video I'm going to do, a live session I'm going to do tomorrow. And if you haven't clicked to get the notification, you're going to want to do it. It is talking about the end of a 6-year friendship. I'm going to start from the very beginning on how we came to know each other, and then explain basically all of the things that I've not spoken on to protect their reputation, their relationship with their audience, all of the dirt, the lies, the deception, all of the skeletons in the closet that I concealed on their behalf, because that is what your friends do. They protect you. You are your brother's keeper. But the friendship has come to an end, and so I'm going to speak on it tomorrow. It'll probably end up having to be a multi-part live session because there's so much dirt to talk about, and there's so much time that's elapsed, right? It's been 6 years that we've been familiar with one another.
Well, earlier I spoke to Rina Shah, who's a geopolitical advisor and a strategist and the founding principal of Vental Strategic Advisory Group. She's also a former senior Republican congressional advisor and says there are disagreements about the war, even within the White House.
What we're seeing right now isn't just policy disagreement. It's a genuine tug of war inside Trump.
What I want you to notice is this is Al Jazeera, right? This is supposed to be an Islamic outlet that is funded by, I believe, the Qatari government, and someone can, please do correct me if that's incorrect. You see, they've started with one woman, and then they are letting another woman, both in the position of teaching and educating the public, being seen. And this is very much so against the modesty that typifies Islam, against the idea that the woman should be protected. And oftentimes that requires her being hidden away from the public. And we know that Islam has fallen. Christianity as well, Judaism as well. Marquettism is for the kids. Marquettism saves lives. And it really saddens me that not only do they represent the complete destruction of the Deen of Islam, but they also represent the rise of liberal feminism. This is European white woman ideology, letting women out here running and leading and talking about war and politics. Extraordinary. And then you wonder why they can't cook up a meal. They're busy trying to manage the Third World War. Why do they need to know about cooking a meal? They're trying to manage the Third World War. Extraordinary. Why would I listen to someone who puts paint on their face? This is something that children and clowns do. You take out time out of your day to put paint on your face so that strangers can think you're pretty. And I should listen to your opinion on anything? It's madness.
Trump's inner circle over this war in Iran. On one side, you've got the hawks who want to finish what they started, which is, put on regime pressure, have full dominance in the Gulf. On the other side, you've got voices that are closer to the original America First instinct. Folks like Vice President.
This chick is a dweeb. America First wouldn't be in this predicament at all. There is no one who is a significant voice of dissent within the Trump administration, because they wouldn't be in the Trump administration, because that regime is not tolerant of dissenting perspectives. That regime is not even tolerant of the balance of power that is supposed to be innate to the United States government structure, checks and balances. There have been no checks and balances. The Congress is completely non-functional. What are we talking about here?
J.D. Vance, who are signaling daylight here. They're saying this could drag on and it could cost us politically and hand the midterms to the other side. So it's not chaos. It's just classic Republican tension between decisive action and avoiding quagmires.
Right, and you just mentioned Trump's America First, and that's what got Donald Trump.
That's a fake thing. That was a marketing campaign. That was a slogan. That was not an actual philosophy. That was not a plan. It was a slogan. You've been duped. You've been had, bamboozled, hoodwinked. Shout out to Danny. Comes in by Venmo, writes, peace to the saints. Thank you for the wisdom and guidance you give out. You're like the older brother I never had. Grateful to be a part of the Assassin. I appreciate you. Peace to the saints. And shout out to all the real ones, guys that I know personally. I know their face. I know their name. Such a beautiful community we have here. John comes in via Venmo. He writes, when elected, would you accept campaign contribution? Bro, stop it. He's at campaign contributions from AIPAC. Knock it off, my boy. Knock it off. May I acknowledge Luis? He writes, tuition. Immensely appreciate your knowledge. Thank you, sir. And you are welcome. And we will have to run a campaign. We'll have to run a campaign like no other. And there is no doubt that I don't want the AIPAC money. I don't need the AIPAC money. I need American people to put in the work. We don't even need money. We just need people to put in work. We so often forget about the power of people. Shout out to Ramon, writes, tuition for the work. Peace to the saints. I appreciate you. May I also acknowledge Jermaine, writes, survey reference in video, 1,002 self-identified registered voters nationwide. That's not very many. Were surveyed March 6th to 8th with a margin of error of plus or minus 3.8%. Percentage points, including the design effect. Okay, 1,002, that's a bit small. I'd be curious as to the random selection across the 50 states. I appreciate that information. Shout out to Patrick. He says, check email. Okay, we'll take a look at that. May I acknowledge Melvin. He writes, peace to the saints. Yes, indeed, peace to the saints. Shout out to Jay. Came in, writes, peace to the saints as well. Came in via Venmo. I also acknowledge Adam. Came in via PayPal. He writes, BB might be deceased. Multiple channels are claiming. Do you have thoughts? I think that BB is alive and well. The good die young. Albatar comes in supporting the work. Appreciate you. May I also acknowledge Darren writes, peace and thanks. Shout out to Darren, been with us a long time, one of the OGs. Jeffrey writes, paying what I owe, and the album is fire. I'm sharing with all my people. I appreciate you. For those of you who like good music, we got some great reggae music. Album is called Marquettism. You can find it anywhere you stream music. The Saint in the Center, Marquettism. Great reggae music. May I also acknowledge EB writes, supporting the work. Much respect to you. Thank you, sir. Shout out to Brad writes, Supreme Leader Marquette Burton. And you know what? It really is going to have to be like that. One thing we should learn from the Iranians, when the Supreme Leader was murdered, and that's what it was, cold-blooded, illegal, vicious murder, he set himself up to go out on purpose. He knew that it would really bring together the revolutionary fervor, the fighting power to deal with the little Satan and the great Satan. And he was toward the evening of his life anyways. He sacrificed himself in martyrdom, and Shiite Islam is a very strong thing. He made the ultimate sacrifice. We so often hear the Christians talk about Jesus, but very few Christians would sacrifice themselves like Jesus, right? And that's precisely what the Supreme Leader did. And what the Westerners fail to understand is that the Supreme Leader in Shia Islam is like their Pope. And so he's activated with his death a number of sects, Shia sects around the world, whether it's in Iraq, whether it's in Bahrain or Qatar or Syria or Nigeria. And these people are going to be radicalized because you killed their religious leader. And that is precisely why religion is actually so important, because if you do not have a religious fervor, it'll be easy for the enemy to break apart the movement. It'll be easy because the leader will get taken out. Here's a great example. Nicolás Maduro in Venezuela. They took out the leader, and what did the Venezuelans do? Nothing. They had a female vice president, so you already know they're going to be weak, right? So they got the female vice president. She's just like, okay, I'll take power. I'll control everything. Female leadership, disgusting, right? And they just let America steal their leader, and then they carry on like it was nothing. They carry on like it was nothing. Look at the Libyans. They fought a little bit, but didn't fight hard enough. Look at the Iraqis. They didn't fight hard enough, got defeated, were carrying on. Look at the Syrians. Bashar al-Assad, beaten and had to go to Russia. They carry on. Let the devils take over their resources and land. You must revere your leader in a religious way, so that the generations and the young people and the old people will stick to him and hold together the nation, or else you face eradication. You face eradication. The devils will break you apart, because if you do not have religious fervor, here's what happened. Some of your population will fall to the offer of money. Some will fall to the offer of women. Some will fall to the offer of children. Epstein class. They'll fall to their fear. They'll fall to greed. But if your leader is viewed as a holy symbol, then people will abide by that holy symbol, and it will be very hard to break apart your nation. That's why they killed the supreme leader. Iran said, that's all right. We're going to mourn him for X amount of days, and we got a new supreme leader. And we believe in him with religious fervor. And we will fight you, devils. We will fight you, devils. If you take our money, we will continue to fight you, devils. You take our food, we'll continue to fight you, devils. You take our oil reserves, we'll fight you, devils. We will fight you, devils, because our religion demands it. And upon death, we get something better than we had while being alive. So we will fight you, devils. Come on now. Yes, indeed. And that's why the United States never wants a religious leader to rise up. As soon as a religious leader rises up, what do? They try to call it a cult, whether it is or is not. But if you truly understand human organization and human nature, you understand that they're all cults. They're all cults. The United States is a cult. Christianity is a cult. Judaism is a cult. Jehovah's Witnesses is a cult. They're all cults. And the reason that the United States government will call certain things cults is because they don't want that cult to take away from their cult. They don't want that gang to take away from the power of their gang. That's all it is. They're trying to maintain the strength and power of their mafia. Come on now. Hope you understand. Shout out to Mr. Tammer, comes in via PayPal. He writes, saw this video of BBMLD come across my feed today. Seems the red pill is failing. Just wanted to share some good news. I appreciate that. And also Mitchell had sent me that as well. BBMLD was at Alex Hermosi's seminar, and he was on there. And I used to make a lot of money selling dating products, and now I'm not making any money selling dating products. Well, number one, it's because you don't have any game. You never did. You're just a liar who got lip injections like you're an Eastern European broad. You have fake teeth like you're a senior citizen. You have hair plugs representing that you have no self-esteem. He's like the original looks maxer. But the fact of the matter is that when you are a male behaving like a woman, makeup is essentially what all of that is. Your lack of authenticity will sing through, and everyone will eventually figure out what you are, which is nothing. And that's why he's falling apart. Not surprising at all. Love to see it. Love to see it. And thank you for sharing that good news. We appreciate that. Carrying on.
Trump elected in the first place, but we're seeing, though, the complete opposite, it seems here for many. Do you think the Republican Party risks losing voters moving forward if this war is prolonged? And could it hurt Republicans in November?
Isn't this silliness? It's truly disgusting. Why are we talking about voters, losing voters? We're losing lives here. We're losing lives. We're losing land that has been occupied or land and soil that has been tilled and harvested for generations. We're losing more than votes here. But this is what these heartless, soulless devils talk about. I don't trust anyone on the television. I don't trust any of these people talking about losing votes. Broad, we're losing lives.
Midterm election,
Votes.
for example.
Extraordinary.
Oh, without a doubt. Republican voters sent a strong message to Washington that they no longer wanted nation building abroad. And so what you're seeing within the Republican Party right now are sort of three different camps. The first is neoconservatives, folks like Senator Lindsey Graham.
Neoconservatives. What the heck is that? There are no conservatives in American government. You cannot be a conservative and put women in positions of power. That is not conservatism. You cannot be religious and put women in positions of power. Religion is patriarchal. There are no conservatives in the United States. Republican and Democrat, they're both pro-LGBTQ. There's no conservatism. So how dare you put neo in front of it? It completely negates what it's supposed to be. Neo, doesn't that mean like new? Neo, doesn't that mean new? Let's see. Neo, number one definition, new. Okay. Conservatism. I think the root word there is conserve, right? Conserve. What does conserve mean? To protect. Maybe protect the ways of the past. Protect tradition. So it's a contradiction in terms. Neoconservatism. Extraordinary. It's really disgusting how much they lie to you. They try to confuse you. Huh? That's what's going on here. There's no honesty. You have two lying women.
And then you've got in the second camp folks like Vice President J.D. Vance, who again is showing his distance and how divergent he is in his views on this from his very own president, his own boss. And then thirdly, you've got...
She's giving J.D. Vance too much credit because it's like if you feel that way, do something. Do something. Feelings don't move the needle. Words don't move the needle. That's why people like Bernie Sanders disgust me. Bernie Sanders been in the United States government since slavery. Babble, babble, accomplish nothing. These multimillionaire socialists are extraordinary.
Again, people who really consider themselves at some point allies with President Trump. And they really oscillate somewhere between Make America Great Again or down to one question. Is this a quick surgical operation to neuter Iran's nuclear ambition?
Or is that support guaranteed over the long term?
You have two goofballs that are just babbling to get you to watch so that they can run ad units and sell you products that you don't need. This channel I actually don't like very much. Weon in particular is the worst because they'll keep putting out new news clippings and they're repeating things that they've already made news clippings about. And it's just to get you to view it. You know, the ongoing war in Iran. You think that there are new things happening and they just repackage the same information 5 or 6 times. This is the era that we're in.
If the war does continue because Trump remains committed to it, for example?
I'll put it this way. Trump sold no forever wars as a slogan, but also as a promise. But Iran is not folding like some expected here. And
these people are offering no insight whatsoever. There is certainly a lack of intelligence and a lack of sincerity there. So we're going to go on to the next news clipping. And I got a phenomenal video that I'm going to react to toward the end. You'll absolutely love it. I promise you it'll be worth the wait. Shout out to Albatar supporting the work via PayPal. He writes, peace of the saints. I have to support our holy symbol. I'm trying to tell you, man. I appreciate you. Shout out to Mark. He writes, not a thing, just came in supporting the work via PayPal. Appreciate you. And shout out to all the folks who are using the information in the description of the video to support. Justin writes, peace of the saints. I'm a new member located in Charlotte, North Carolina. Are there any saints in the city? Absolutely. Tap in with Mr. Gardner. So if you're on peaceofthesaints.com, go ahead and tap in with Mr. Gardner. We'll get you connected. And we welcome you warmly to this thing of ours. Everyone in the chat, please welcome the gentleman. As our organization, we don't want it to feel like the world out there. We want people to come in and be welcomed warmly. We have to teach a new way of living, a new way of being civilized, because there's no doubt that this world that we are in has become very barbaric and isolated and unwelcoming.
Of Clark Island, which Donald Trump says was heavily bombed by the U.S. military. Now, it's a small island in the northern Gulf. It's about 25 kilometers off the Iranian mainland. The island is the main hub for oil exports, handling around 90 to 95% of Iran's crude shipments to global markets. Oil from inland fields is transported through pipelines to the island, where it's stored in large facilities before being loaded onto tankers. Clark has a major advantage. It's got deep waters close to shore, allowing large tankers to dock. It's also got its own airport to bring in workers and supplies.
Now, I want to clarify this for you. I've put out a lot of videos, and I really hope you watch every one of them, because I always put them out with purpose. I've never once put out a video like, oh, this is going to do a bunch of views, so I'm just going to put it out. Every single time I want you to learn something. There's a video that I put out on Macau and Hong Kong. And in the Macau video, I talked about how Macau, which was colonized by the Portuguese, used to be a power until Hong Kong came into existence, controlled by the Brits. And again, these are the white countries going around the world to try to control and dominate people. So anyways, the reason that Hong Kong was superior to Macau is because Macau was a shallow water port, whereas Hong Kong was a deep water port. It allows you to bring in bigger ships and transport more cargo. This is very important for international trade and commerce. And so if you pay attention to those videos and you catch those gems, it'll help you better understand the world, especially as it relates to geopolitics. Having a proper port is hugely important. If you look at the African continent, like for example, the West Coast, you would find that, it doesn't have as many ports, natural places for ships to dock and to engage in commerce as you would think, given the very long coastline. And those are the things that impact the positioning of a particular country, their ability to thrive, have significant imports and exports. These are things that you have to understand, and it defines a country's latitude. So there you go. And this is an important example of why Iran uses this island, because it has the deep water port. So it's strategic and it's necessary. A country does not get an option on where to have their ports, because this is based on the existing situation in the earth, which, for the most part, you cannot change. So this is a strategic weakness on the part of Iran, but this would not be the first time that this island has been attacked. And I think that Iran expected it, because of course this should be attacked, right? And Iran is fully prepared to deal with the consequences and to retaliate.
Joining me in the studios is Zidun Al-Khanani. He's a Middle East politics lecturer at Georgetown University here in Qatar. Very good to have you with us on Al Jazeera. I want to talk about the importance of Clark Island. What do you suggest Donald Trump's intentions could be towards the island, given the fact he's made the point that he has ostensibly hit the military installations, but he's not touching the oil installations yet?
It's a next stage development, given that the Clark Island was ignored in the first 2 weeks of the war. It's a recent move that may indicate that there's a shift from the geopolitical to the economic.
This guy sounds like an imbecile. I'm waiting for him to say something of meaning.
Economic pressure, which might go back to the previous overarching maximum pressure strategy noticed in the transition or the transformation of the discourse and the rhetoric of both Trump and Netanyahu, claiming that influence lead up to rationalizing imically in the lead up to taking a step back. In contrast to its GCC neighbors.
This guy's an imbecile. That's the summary. And the truth is, when you understand something well, you can make it plain. You can make it simple. And he's an educated fool. There are many persons who are diligent and persistent. They're able to get degrees, even PhDs, but they're still not very intelligent. And as a result, they don't have any insights. This guy is an example of such. Total imbecile. He said nothing of meaning. It's a total waste to have listened to him. I hope he trips and falls leaving the studio. Anyways, shout out to Herb. He writes, Bishop Don Devon Burton. I appreciate you. He writes, appreciate the sign language sermon. Church. Absolutely. And many people might not realize that I actually originated the term, the acronym sign language, and then Kevin Samuels popularized it. Shout out to Franklin. He writes, Palestine, free America will get it. Thank you. Now, so acknowledge 7 came in supporting the work. He writes, the FCC chief Brendan Carr warned media outlets to correct course or lose their licenses. Exactly. We have no freedom of the press. This is truly sickening. Trump is increasing pressure on outlets and their coverage of the war effort. Oh, so sad. You noted long ago that freedom of speech does not exist, and that is right. And before these devils have become aggressive, we must organize and we must expand the message. We must bless everyone with the ism because it is in our numeracy. Like we have to have numerical significance, and then they will have to keep their hands off of us. Yes. But if we stay separated, we will be victim of being dominated. I hope you understand. Let's go on to the video that was sent in. Gentleman sent in a super chat and then attached a video, which I've not heard of or had time to preview. Hopefully it is not vulgar. He did not include timestamps, so we'll take a quick look and see what is here.
Content included in this video are jokes and for satirical entertainment purposes only. They should not be taken or
the Goomba and the Sneeko beef. This beef will never want this beef to end. You guy, he is a snake. He's a coward. He's not a guy you should. He has no shame. I refuse to believe that Fresh has a soul. He doesn't have a soul. He's a
Sneeko is that like he had the world in his hands as well.
Yeah.
He had the world by the throat. Say, you know what? Let's go over here. Let's go over here. He could take it anywhere.
Yeah.
The problem is he saw a trail.
Shout out to Jonathan
which
supporting
I
the
spoke
work.
about, this in person on our show, of money and different genres.
Yeah.
And I was like, Sneeko, you're like a leaf in the wind. You're going here, here, everywhere. And no, bro, trust me, just stick to one.
The way he's saying I'm a leaf in the wind, the way I see it is like I literally can't be the person.
Well, he has a point there because, I mean, Sneeko has become a part of every religion. Anything that Andrew Tate did, Sneeko did. And I do believe Sneeko also came on to Andrew Tate sexually. Yes, there's video documentation. Sneeko tries everything. He tried heterosexuality. He was like, maybe I should try homosexuality. He tried being monogamous with his lady. Then he tried being poly and then engaged in a 3-way situation with her. It's true. He told the story on it. And this is precisely why not everyone should have the privilege of speaking in front of a microphone because so many people are lost. You have the lost or the blind, shall we say, leading the blind. Sneeko is underdeveloped. And the fact of the matter is, some people will never develop past a certain level. IQ is fixed and his self-esteem is non-existent. He does whatever pays. He does whatever he thinks is cool. And that's why he started following Daddy Tate. You remember when he bought his Andrew Tate starter pack, cigar, dark shades, wear them indoors. It was ridiculous. Unbutton my shirt way down here. It's like, come on, buddy. So the fact is, Fresh was speaking the truth about him.
To repeat the same talking points for 5 years straight. I can't do it. I would go insane. That's how he approaches it. He's like, this is a business. 5 times a week, talk about simping, and this is my thing. If I talked about simping 5 times a week.
Okay, very good. Thank you for sharing that. We're back on topic here.
Has sparked global concerns. Oil prices are up, Gulf nations are facing attacks, and end of war remains uncertain. Where does the war on Iran stand?
End of war remains uncertain. The near-term end of the war is guaranteed not to be near. That is certain. It's only uncertain to people who would lie to themselves, to those who are emotional. Shout out to Felix supporting the work. Marquette, well, why is the end of the war nowhere near? being close by? Well, number one, Iran, topographically speaking, is very treacherous. And so it would be quite difficult to wage a ground invasion. And even if you did, of Iran's 90 million population, which is significant, they're no Venezuela, right? They're no Iraq. 90 million is a significant number of persons. And also, you have to remember that this was the Persian Empire. These people know a thing or two about war, and we've seen them engage in conflict, for example, against Iraq. They know how to fight. And they've contended with the United States even under massive sanctions for a long time. I also published another video you guys should have caught where I talked to it. The video is entitled, "Is Iran Evil?" And in that video, I run down some of the statistics on Iran. Despite the fact that the Western liars claim that the Iranians suppress women, and frankly, I don't think they do it enough, we find women there too are over-enrolled and very well represented in STEM, even more so than in the West. We also find that the literacy rate among both male and female is very high, especially with regards to women when you compare it to when the Shah of Iran, America's puppet, was running things. Also, they're in the top 10 of vaccine producers. They're pioneers in drone technology. They're also really impressive in AI and in stem cell. So this is a high-tech, very impressive people, the Iranians. And for that reason, we must take them seriously. But back to the part about ground invasion. The topography is difficult. The country is vast. The population is significant, 90 million. But then their Revolutionary Guard, their military forces, they actually have like damn near 1 million people. America, on the other hand, has to engage selective service and the draft to create mercenaries and send in people who are underprepared, ill-led, and doomed. And they're going to experience a situation similar to the Ukrainians or the Russians in terms of getting new recruits, whereas the Iranians are fighting for something real. They're not fighting for the aims of our greatest ally. So Iran is nothing to play with.
As we move beyond 2 weeks of constant attacks and counterattacks, here's a report.
The war has entered its third week. Pentagon and Israeli forces say they have targeted and dismantled over 15,000 Iranian targets.
15,000, huge number of targets. And what I surmise is actually the case. All of the known, this is an important concept, all of the known military targets have been hit, many of them probably destroyed. The challenge are the unknown military targets. The challenge is the subterranean, underground stores of weapons and launch sites that are either too far underground to destroy, or they're just not known targets. And as a result, the United States has moved on to attacking that island, which houses some of Iran's oil infrastructure and their access to revenue and the chief driver of their economy. So what you have to ask yourself, and we know that the Americans nor the Israelis are human beings, these people without color are very wicked and they will kill anybody and anything. And so in the absence of military targets, what they'll do is they'll go for maximum carnage, which is to say targeting the civilian population. They've already attacked Tehran, and Tehran is a highly populated city. So we know that that is on the horizon, because they've already destroyed what they can destroy in terms of known military targets. This war will become vicious and desperate. And I think that religion at some level failed the Iranians in as much as their previous supreme leader give a fatwa that they should not have nuclear weapons. As far as assassin goes, I give a fatwa that we should always be more ruthless than our enemies. And that is how you keep the devil in his cage. And so the fact is they did not have the nuclear weapons needed to protect themselves and keep the small Satan and the great Satan at bay. I surmise now perhaps the new supreme leader, which is ironic because there was a decapitation strategy that was used by Israel and it's been going on for quite some time. They've replaced the supreme leader with the supreme leader, same bloodline and probably the same ideology, except I surmise the son after his father was killed, and I do believe maybe his wife and some of his family members were killed as well. Someone can verify that using the information below. but he's probably a little bit more radicalized. And that's what the people without color fail to understand, because they don't view you and I as human beings. That's why they take from us, whether it's our life or our property or our dignity or our manhood. They take from us and think that we should just accept it, not realizing that what you call terrorists really are those who are brokenhearted and are doing their best to avenge the evil that you have done unto them, the murder of their father, the murder of their mother, of their children. And that is something that hardens a people. And there is no doubt that the current supreme leader is probably not pleased that you murdered his father. For what cause? For no cause except the Greater Israel Project. So inasmuch as that is the case, we would probably be able to reasonably surmise that if Iran doesn't already have nuclear weapons, and if I was running Iran, I certainly would have had them, that certainly they're probably thinking of trying to put some together. Now, these would not be sophisticated nuclear weapons where you can, put it on the top of a precision-guided missile, a warhead that can travel a great distance, but rather, big bombs that can create a Hiroshima-Nagasaki effect and hit targets that are fairly proximate is more than likely what they'll have capability for. And this is yet another reason that the Gulf states should be terrified. And frankly, if I was Iran, I would start targeting Saudi. And I would start saying, hey, I want everyone in the region to know all of your most holy sites, Mecca, Medina, the Kaaba, we are going to blow them up. Yes, we're going to blow them up. They will not exist anymore unless you get the Israelis and the Americans to stop. You have 10 days. In 10 days, if you have not gotten the Americans and the Israelis to stop, you can kiss the Kaaba goodbye. You can kiss Mecca and Medina goodbye. Matter of fact, don't even use the word Saudi Arabia. It ain't going to exist. And I promise you that'd get people moving. Yeah, I think that'd get people moving. But in the absence of that kind of seriousness, you just have protracted warfare because neither side has the kill switch. Neither side has something that is strong enough to stop the other side. You see, the Israelis obviously have nuclear weapons, which they will no doubt use. And I heard some foolish pundit saying, if the Israelis use nuclear weapons, they'll lose all of their international support. Nah, they leveled Gaza. They've killed more journalists than any war has in history. They've taken the lives of many innocent children. They're doing fine. They're doing fine. So we observe that they can pretty much do whatever they want. So I would never rule out the Israelis doing fill in the blank. And that's a part of their strength, is that they might do anything. And I respect it. I learn from it. And I want all of our enemies to know that we might do anything to you. Don't play with us. Do not play with us. It is not advisable. Yes, indeed. Anyways, shout out to Jonathan. Shout out to Felix as well, supporting the work. And also acknowledge Franklin. He writes, what do you think Putin is thinking right now with this war in Iran? I think Putin views it as a very immoral war of aggression. However, he's actually benefiting because Donald, in his ineptitude, is now allowing various nations to legally buy oil from Russia, which will only benefit the Russian economy and war effort, and also open up negotiations for Russia to be re-included in the international order. So it's a benefit to Russia. However, do they trust the Americans? No. Do they view the Americans in any different way? No, they just know the Americans are more controlled by Israel than perhaps even he suspected. So I think that's what Putin is considering at the moment. Gentleman writes, Iran is launching their 54th missile wave. That's a lot of waves. Introducing 5 newer and advanced missiles with heavier payloads and air defense evasion technology. Oh, absolutely. And, the curious calculus of the Iranians is, we do want to stagger this out so that we can make the war longer, which is to our advantage. However, the longer you hold off on sending out your missile barrage, you risk the fact of that those missiles being blown up or targeted before you can actually use them offensively. So it really shows that they have nerves of steel. They have a war plan that they're executing on. And I really respect them. And, I pray and make dua for them to be successful. May I acknowledge the boss comes right back. He writes, Kim Jong-un understood these people only speak the language of violence and didn't waste time with deals and treaties they would break anyways. 100%. And the nature of the people without color has not changed at all. If you would observe Adolf, he put together many treaties and made promises which he broke. And that was a part of his strategy, was to put his opponents to sleep with lies and then to violate them when they least expected it.
Iran, not ready to surrender, is using ballistic missiles, weighing heavy as 2 tons, putting Gulf region in the crosshairs, not relenting.
And you can tell that this outlet is biased. Iran, not ready to surrender. The language presupposes that if the war is to end, it would end with Iran surrendering. I pray that the Iranians are defiant and are strong and will fight to the last man, woman, and child, because that's absolutely what must happen, and that is for the good of the world. Shout out to Ernest supporting the work using the Stripe link. I appreciate you. May I also acknowledge Frank came in the same way. Also, shout out to one of the Saints just became a member at peacetothesaints.com. We welcome you warmly within this thing of ours. Carrying on.
U.S. claims to have complete control over Iranian skies while the Strait of Hormuz waters are still being dominated by Iran. Tehran is now focusing on sustained military strikes. The volume of attacks have came down, but the threat of fresh attacks looms continuously. Iran is increasingly relying on cluster bombs to attack Israel. These munitions are difficult to intercept as the missile ejects smaller submunitions before hitting the ground. The war so far has been focused on aerial and naval assaults, causing damage across Gulf countries. Iran's new leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, says Gulf nation must shut U.S. bases or be ready to face attacks.
And this is a very logical strategy. This is not even a mad dog strategy. This is not on the order of what Henry Kissinger may have recommended to someone like Nixon, saying, hey, attack this random country nearby just to show that you're crazy and you don't give a F. But rather, this is actually quite appropriate and strategic because these Gulf states host American military bases. They allow their airspace to be used. They allow for refueling within their territory. And so they are legitimate targets because they are legitimate participants in America's war effort, and they must be neutralized. That's number one. Number two, you'll notice that on a consistent basis, the Americans are being dishonest about the casualties. And anytime you see a fighter jet from America, 3 in fact, being shot down, oh, it was friendly fire. Okay, great. Then you see a refueling plane being taken out of the sky. Then the Americans claim, oh, it just crashed. Well, why did it crash? How did it crash? Do these people not know how to fly airplanes? You know, usually a crash is going to occur when you're trying to take off and you immediately find that there's a failure with engines or what have you, there's some issue, or when you're landing, you're crash landing, but that was not the case with this one. It crashed for a reason. It didn't crash. It was taken out of the air. The question is by what means and by whom, and I surmise maybe by the enemies of America and Israel. And it's the lies that they clearly think that we are fools and all of this stuff is just accidents. You know, the fighter jets were just accidentally shot down. Friendly fire. This refueling plane just accidentally came out of the sky. It's like, come on, man. We don't believe this.
Since the beginning of war, Bahrain has intercepted 125 missiles and 203 drones. UAE has intercepted over 2.
Now, I want you guys to listen and notice the way this information is being presented, and big middle finger to WEON. They're telling us how many have been intercepted. Let's wait and see if they tell us how many have not been intercepted, meaning they landed on target. Let's hear if they talk about how many missiles have been intercepted, but the debris fell down and caused a casualty. Let's see.
294 ballistic missiles and 1,600 drones. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, along with Kuwait, Oman, and Iraq are also facing daily attacks. In the latest, Iran has targeted U.S. base in Saudi Arabia's Al-Kharj. UAE's Fujairah oil facility also caught fire, and loud explosions were heard in Bahrain's Manama. Gulf nations are faced with a difficult choice: Loose out on American security umbrella or keep catching Iranian missiles.
Now, think about the true sickness you have to have in your mind. You really have to be a white supremacist to think that the Gulf countries are losing out on American protection. What protection? What protection? America's military bases in your countries have been destroyed. America is not stopping those missiles from landing in your countries, especially if your country is called the United Arab Emirates. What protection? You're suffering right now as we speak. There is no protection. Iran's too close. Iran's too effective. There is no protection. You've already taken the L. Best you can do now is capitulate. Huh? Capitulate to Iran. And here's something else that we have to consider. We know Iran is truly in the power position. I love to see it. It really could have occurred earlier with more ruthless leadership. They really need to let your boy be the next Ayatollah. You dig? I get this place whole straightened out. But currently, there are vessels that are permitted to transit through the Strait of Hormuz. There are countries that are reaching out to not America, but Iran to negotiate passage of goods through the Strait of Hormuz, which lets you know that they view Iran as the power player, the controlling force in the Persian Gulf. And it's called the Persian Gulf. It's not called the Saudi Arabian Gulf or anything. It's the Persian Gulf. The Iranians control it. And they're the ones who are being treated as the landlords presently. And if I were them, I would continue that even beyond the end of the war. And I would tax goods going in and out. Yeah. If that's how America wants it, that's how it's going to be. Come on now.
Drones. They have so far remained cautious in joining offense against Iran. But Tehran vows it has ample evidence to prove that U.S. bases in Gulf are being used by U.S. to conduct attacks. The latest Iranian salvo comes after U.S. forces hit Iran's Karg Island.
And it's worth noting that perhaps one of the reasons that the Iranians are so certain that these strikes are coming from their neighbors is because the United States strategically put these bases around Iran for this very purpose. And at some level, you know, the airspace is needed to resupply, to refuel. And then you also have the funny thing of Russians helping with intelligence and maybe even the Chinese too. So I trust that Iran knows what they say they know. I trust that 100%.
Which is a key artery of Iran's oil trade. Iran claims that attack on Karg was carried out from UAE, and it will further escalate the scope of retaliation. Iran says,
and the way UAE has been attacked already, and I know because I was there while it was being attacked, and I do want to release some more information that I gathered while I was in UAE. I just haven't had time to put together the videos. UAE is being hard-headed, and it's a deceiver. And also, we know what the United Arab Emirates is doing in Sudan, causing much death, destruction, and bloodshed there. They are operating in Sudan the way Israel has operated in Gaza. And with that being the case, I think it is time to punish them. It is time to destroy everything that makes UAE a worthwhile place. This would include all of the civilian infrastructure in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. And I give my full blessing for Iran to proceed with such, because the UAE is not being honest. They're not fighting fair, and they've betrayed their Arab brothers. There's no Arab anything. They are only loyal to the dollar, and they have also betrayed the Deen of Islam.
It will hit any energy infrastructure in the region which belongs to any American company.
They shouldn't even make that caveat. They should be like, look, we're bombing everything. Everything. It all has to go.
This is not the first time Iran has vowed a tat-for-tat action. It threatened to hit U.S. banks in the Gulf after strikes hit its banking facility in Tehran. As war continues to rage, the battle of words is also intensifying. Iran's Supreme National Security Council, Secretary Ali Larijani has opened a fresh front on social media. After Pentagon chief labeled Iranian leaders as rats, Larijani has accused a 9/11-like plot being planned by what he called remnants of Epstein's team.
You know, I think that's completely valid. The American public, especially the everyday white person, is very easy to influence. And so I could very much so see another 9/11 being organized. I think it's very bizarre that they're warning of attacks on California. Like, I don't know about that, buddy. So sad but true. I can completely believe it. In fact, I forwarded the idea that the reason the Trump administration left Americans stranded in a war zone in the Middle East, throughout the Middle East, whereas you saw the Russians chartering both private and commercial aircraft to get their citizens out, as did the Indian government. And just imagine the Indians outperforming the Americans. The United States and Britain left their citizens there. And I think it was so that some American could die. And then Trump could say, they're killing our citizens. They're killing Americans. We have to do something, and try to unite the nation. There have been many theatrical pieces of BS that we've been victim of. Even the Trump assassination, the idea that an assassin shoots a bullet just precisely to nick your ear, and then your first instinct, instead of like covering, is to stand up and put your arm up in defiance. And then we look at your ear, and your ear is completely whole and recovered, and like no one talks about that. So I just think it's really strange. I live in the South, in the Confederate South, in fact, and I just think that you'd aim for a vital organ if you're trying to take out the president of the United States, you know, heart, chest, all of these kinds of places, bigger target. And I just don't think you'd miss in general. And certainly you wouldn't be aiming for the head. You'd probably have the target a little bit lower. And one shot, why not more than one shot? And just the fact that not only did you miss, you just happened to nick somewhere to show some blood, to show that it was a real thing. Very curious. Don't believe it at all. And I think that this is increasingly the case, that even reasonable, well-educated people are sounding like conspiracy theorists because our government is so dishonest, so laughable, so violent, and it makes us so helpless and voiceless. And people are becoming dissatisfied and disbelievers in the American government. We are in revolutionary times. I've been saying this for decades. And now you are seeing it. The only question is, when the revolution pops off, will you be organized? There will be so many things that will change rapidly, and Americans do not know what it is like to have war on our soil. We do not know what it is like to have significant unrest on our soil. We don't know what it's like when stores close their doors, when places are mass looted, when water sources are in question. At Burton Plantation, we have our own water source that we control wholly. We're very much so self-sufficient. I encourage you to, if you don't join up with this thing of ours, peaceofthesaints.com, join up with something, because if things go wrong here, you will be learning the hard way. I want you to imagine and try to put yourself in the shoes of those people who are right now in Tehran, what they're experiencing. Once the bomb lands and blows things up, the electrical grid is out. Where are you getting your electricity, your light and your heat from? Or if they bomb the plumbing, one of the water mains is busted out, the water's shooting out, but there's no water going to your home. Where do you get your drinking water from? The stores have all been looted. Money has no meaning anymore, right? Come on now. You don't have any cash. You just have your credit card. You can't even engage in commerce. Come on now. Imagine a world like that. That world is not so far away, I promise you. And that is the problem of the American, is that we think that we're beyond attack. We're beyond reproach. And the small times we get attacked, we call it terrorism, as opposed to naming it correctly, which is an act of war. And what we're probably more likely to experience now that we've killed a religious leader, a global religious leader, we're in an aggressive war of imperialism on behalf of Israel, we may likely experience some of these things. And frankly, you can't call it a terrorist attack. You could only call it retribution.
Diplomatic efforts to script end of this war also remain sketchy. Donald Trump says Iran is ready to make a deal, but the deal is not the one that he would be ready to accept. Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araghchi has said that no specific initiative has been proposed to end the war, but at the same time he said Iran welcomes any regional initiative that leads to a just end to the war.
The Iranians always sounding upright and reasonable. I don't think this is the time for that. I want to hear these balls sounding like completely psychotic and diabolical. This is the time where the Iranians should be saying, nah, we're ready to die and we're ready to kill. That's about it. Kill or die. That's really all we're into right now. That's all we're into. And you might say, Marquette, well, why do you take such a strong position? Have you not observed the behavior of the West? Both times that the Iranians were in negotiations, they were getting bombed by Israel and the United States, which is what ended the negotiations. There's no such thing as negotiating with these devils. Come on now. Let's be real here. Shout out to the folks supporting the work. May I acknowledge Free World. Also, shout out to Franklin. He writes, why are Iranians having to give their lives for the good of the world? Man, check yourself. Frankly, I just think you don't comprehend what I'm saying. Frankly, I don't think you comprehend what I'm saying. That's okay. If you need clarification, send in your email via Super Chat or PayPal, and I'll give you a link to come on and we can have a discussion. I can break it down for you so that you comprehend. Shout out to Wishman. He writes, it appears the price for us to win in Iran, when you say us, I'm not a part of the American government and I don't condone anything they're doing. So you and the American government to win in Iran will be higher than the so-called leaders anticipated. Well, here's the thing. If you're the Donald, your family is rich and good looking. You are not sending any of your lineage to war. So the price is high and you're willing to pay it. He said himself, people die in wars. It's what happens. He's fine with that. So I don't think the price is higher than they anticipated. He's a billionaire. When you're a billionaire, does the price of gas affect you? No, sir, Bob. Does the price of eggs affect you? Not at all. So his family's safe, his money's safe, and he's still in power. There's no cost to him. He writes, the hubris of Donald will not let us just leave. Correct. What can we common Americans do to make politicians pull out? Number one is organize. Because if you're not organized, anything that you do or say is meaningless because it doesn't have the power of numbers behind it. That's why I have peaceofthesaints.com. That's why I have all of this organization throughout the world. Number two, you have to vote, but more importantly, you have to run for office. So we have to run for office and then vote for the saints to infiltrate and take over. And then number three, we actually have to crush the government because it is wholly wicked. So it's a simultaneous strategy of infiltration and destruction of the American government, which is completely rotten. And at the same time, we have to revitalize the culture globally to focus on the right things, truth and good education being chief among them. I thank you for that question. That is a meaningful question.
Joining us from New York is Mr. Adrian Calamel. He's a fellow at Arabian Peninsula Institute, terrorism and Middle Eastern scholar, and also the author of the forthcoming book on Hezbollah. Mr. Calamel, it's good to see you after a long time. Thank you very much for making time for us. Now that you are an author of the revered group in Lebanon, that is Hezbollah, let's start from there. Do you actually think that Israel will be able to obliterate Hezbollah?
Well, good evening to you, Eric. And
they damn sure are trying, though, right? They're damn sure trying. But here's the funny thing. And the interviewer asked the wrong question. He clearly does not comprehend. You see, it's not about obliterating Hezbollah. It's about obliterating as many human beings as possible in that locality so that you can take over the land. Who cares if you take out Hamas or Hezbollah? Let's take out everybody, then we can take over the land. We have to de-people the land, remove the Muslims and the Christians from the land so that we can fill it with the Israelis. Come on now.
That's a really good question. It's a difficult one. We have to look at what's happened to Hezbollah over the last 2 years. This could be the final coup de grace for Hezbollah. Are we going to see a 1982 Israel operation that's like the Operation Rat?
This guy's talking slow and thinking even slower. Shout out to Lucas. He writes, what do you think the future of Israel is next 10 to 20 years? I believe that Israel will continue to be in a strong position. They'll continue to be extraordinarily aggressive. They'll expand their territory and continue to control the planet Earth at a much greater level unless a great leader rises up. He can radicalize the people and he can drive them to great rapid action and find a final solution. Otherwise, the world is doomed. Everyone will eventually be reduced to slaves of the Israeli state and the Zionist mission. And that'll be all she wrote. Evil will reign. Thank you for that question.
Path of Galilee, where they go all the way to Beirut and push Yasser Arafat out of the country. I don't know if that's possible. What we have to understand is that Hezbollah has been, they've really taken over the state apparatus since the Republic has to go.
So we have another imbecile who is not insightful, not articulate. Where do they get these people? carrying on, let's actually hear from an authority in the Iranian regime. And these men are very brave. You see them actually out among their people, unlike the Trump administration. And they're doing this with bombs going off at the same time. Truly a brave people, the Iranians.
Thank you so much for your time this morning, sir. I wanted to start with the news overnight that the U.S. has carried out a military strike on Kharg Island. The President of the United States said that for reasons of decency, I have chosen not to wipe out all.
The President of the United States never does anything for reasons of decency. For reasons of decency, he would step down from office. For reasons of decency, he'd probably crush the American government and let us start from scratch. It's that bad. So probably he is scared to destroy that infrastructure and thereby trigger the Iranians to immediately destroy the oil infrastructure, Saudi Aramco, and all of these other companies, be them directly American or indirectly American through ownership of shares. He's trying to avoid triggering that, or he is basically using this as essentially a negotiation tactic. But at the end of the day, it's going to escalate because Iranians have finally realized that you cannot negotiate with these people. And the Trump administration, due to his ego, he will not back down. And also due to the fact that if he didn't have ego, he's clearly controlled through blackmail by Bibi Netanyahu. And so he's going to push through to the suffering of all of humankind. You might say, Mark, how is all of humankind suffering? Well, even if you look at not only oil, but also fertilizer is not making it to certain parts of the world. Even Africa, the entire continent, is much more susceptible to what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz. Many of them are importers of oil. And shout out to Dangote in Nigeria, who's allowed the Nigerians, empowered rather, to actually refine their own oil. It is the largest oil refinery in sub-Saharan Africa. It is certainly an accomplishment, and it's homegrown and home controlled. That's remarkable, but we do know that the Africans are fool enough. They've permitted the Israelis to have many, many acres of land. Was it Kenya that did it? I forget. And then you also have the Nigerians collaborating with the Israelis on military affairs and technology, which means that they'll be spied on and controlled. So the Israelis are just phenomenally clever. You really have to give it to them. The Africans are morbidly foolish, but these two things are not new. And that's precisely why we have SAS in Africa. We are spreading this ism across the continent to wake these folks from the dead. We have a 3 sentence Bible, a 3 sentence Quran, a 3 sentence Torah, if you like. Number 1, be yourself. Number 2, be good to yourself. Number 3, be good to good people. So number 1, be yourself. The Africans struggle with this a great deal. They don't know who they are, and they don't like who they are. You see, and so we must teach them of who they are, for many of them have had their histories torn from them. Shout out to Constantine supporting the work, came in via Venmo. Appreciate you. May also acknowledge via PayPal. Shout out to Charles. He writes, no question here. You've answered so many of them. Thank you for your sacrifice and putting forth the real work. Peace to the saints in a real way. I appreciate that. And yes, there has no doubt been much sacrifice. Shout out to Mr. Ferreira. He writes, peace to the saints. Appreciate you. And as we say within this thing of ours, show love to those who show love to you. So I appreciate those of you who show it to me.
The oil infrastructure on the island. However, should Iran or anyone else do anything to interfere with the free and safe passage of ships through the Strait of Hormuz, I will immediately reconsider this decision. Let me start by asking you about what has happened on Kharg Island and what is...
You know, the funny thing is that Trump is... It's like he's behind the 8 ball. He's saying that if anything happens to ships transiting the Strait of Hormuz, then I'll escalate and I'll bomb your oil infrastructure. Things are already happening to ships that are transiting the Strait of Hormuz. In fact, many of them are basically creating a parking lot at sea because they're scared to transit, and they should be. And there has been one that's been attacked, and that's why the other ones won't move. And we all have to remember the people that are on these ships, these are commercial vessels. These are not military vessels. These are not military men. These are people who are out for a paycheck, and they're just working a job. And so there's no doubt that they're not interested in risking their life merely to transit goods. So I would be, I'd be like, let me off this ship. Well, y'all going where? Let me off. Somebody call me an Uber. You know, there is no doubt that these people are probably terrified being caught in the midst of war and just being everyday civilians. I think that Trump is at the end of his rope, and he really is embarrassing the entire country. I heard this fool even suggest that he needed help from other nations. And at this point, I want to remind you, sometimes when an individual or an entity is doing so well, you lose consciousness of what they're doing because they're doing it way too well. Like, for example, there was a debate I had. It was a 2-on-1, me against two white supremacists. I was obliterating them. You almost forgot that it was a 2-on-1, right? This is the same thing with Iran. Iran is fighting the United States, the most powerful military ever, and Israel, certainly the most ruthless country ever, and then all of their backers, including the Italians and the French and the British and the Gulf countries, all by themselves. Come on now, you got to give them some respect. I'm about to, man, you guys might make me create a shirt with an Iran flag on it. You dig? Let me know if you need that in your life.
Iran's response to these strikes?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I think our armed forces have already answered that they would retaliate if our oil and energy infrastructure are attacked. And they will attack any energy infrastructure in the region which belongs to an American company or an American company is a shareholder. So the reaction would be clear. Last night, they have attacked Khark Island and Abu Musa Island with, the artillery rocket system, HIMARS as they call it, which is a low-range rockets. And they have done it from the soil of our neighbors. And this is crystal clear that now they are using the territory of our neighbors to attack us by these kind of, rockets. And this is absolutely
Which
unacceptable.
neighbors, sir?
Well, these last night attacks were tracked by our forces, and now it is clear that they are fired from UAE, from 2 locations in the.
Simple. It's that simple. You heard me. It's that simple. You dig? Shout out to Gary using the Stripe link in the description of the video to support the work. May also acknowledge Frank. He writes, private credit seems to be imploding as we speak. Between AI, unemployment, and the war, their loans will be increasingly risky, banks will restrict liquidity, and investors will become more and more anxious. What are your thoughts? Are we witnessing 2007 all over again? I agree with you. And before the war, Trump wasn't dealing with favorable circumstances. The price of houses were already way out of control. Interest rates were not favorable. And so you had a lot of illiquidity and people refusing to make any moves. You know, the people who own houses have favorable loans with low interest rates, so they're not going to budge on price because they can't rebuy another house afterward on favorable terms. People who would buy houses can't afford to buy houses. And then if you look at premium markets like, say, Florida, not only do you have the houses are far too expensive to where it's cost prohibitive, in addition, you have your government is making bad policy. And so you have high property taxes and you have high insurance rates. And so it just makes for a terrible situation. And I find that when you're in a situation whereby the government is making you poor, the people are just too weak and too devoid of testosterone because the very mandate of government is to support the people. Government is to serve the people. It's not to give you parking tickets. It's not to drag you into endless wars. It's not to steal your money in taxes. Government is supposed to operate at the pleasure of the people, to keep us safe, to provide for infrastructure, bridges, roads, good public schools. It has done none of that, and it should be crushed. It is an oppressive regime. It is mafia.
In the UAE, from in Ras Al Khaimah, and from a location very close to the city of Dubai, and it is very, dangerous that they use highly populated areas to launch, rockets against us. We would certainly retaliate, but we try to be careful not to attack any populated area.
Is there any sign that Iran is prepared to allow passage of the Straits of Hormuz? Will the Straits of Hormuz remain closed so long as this war continues?
Well, as a matter of fact, the Strait of Hormuz is open. It is only closed to the tankers and ships belong to our enemies, to those who
That
are
was
attacking
gangster.
us
That
and
was
their
gangster.
allies. Others are free to pass. Of course, many of them prefer not because of their security concerns. This has nothing to do with us. And at the same time, there are many tankers and ships who are passing through the Strait of Hormuz.
And I would like to say that you can see the sincerity and the goodness in this gentleman. And I find Iran's claims to generally be very believable. And the reason that they're so believable is because Iran has a history of this. History as a teacher. There was a time that Iran came into conflict with one of the American administrations. I believe it was Jimmy Carter. Yes, I believe it was Jimmy Carter, and then that administration was followed by Ronald Reagan, who's the tough guy. He was like the Trump of his time. And there was a hostage situation whereby some Americans were taken hostage, and the Iranian government released the black hostages and the women. And they said we released the women because, not they, the Ayatollah Khomeini said that we released the women because in Islam, we have a great respect for women, so we released the women. And we released the blacks because we view them as captives. You guys have abused them greatly. And so we take them as being here, damn near as hostages of you. So we release them. And so we've seen consistently that the Iranians don't seek to involve any innocent group of people in war. This is the chief aim of the Western imperialist powers, which is to bring war to anyone that won't fold and accept the theft of their life and property and dignity.
And I can say that the strait is not closed, but it is only closed to American, Israeli, ships and tankers, and not to others.
We know that Iran has elected a new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei. He has not been seen yet in public, though he did issue a statement yesterday. I'm sure you have heard the comments from the U.S. Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, who has said that he claimed the supreme leader is wounded and likely disfigured. What is the status of the supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei?
Well, they have made so many claims like this. Yesterday, they said that all Iranian authorities are in the bunkers, but at the same time, the whole world saw our president, the Speaker of Parliament, everybody, the Secretary of our National Security Council, everybody was in the street among the people who demonstrated. So there are lots of accusations like that. They will see soon, I guess, that there is no problem with the new supreme leader. He sent his message yesterday, and he will perform his duties. He is performing his duties according to the Constitution, and he will continue to do that. I think by now,
when I look at a Pete Hegseth or a Donald Trump, I wonder, where are the wholesome white men at? Like the Mr. Rogers types. Because to be a conservative, you think of these are people who respect tradition, they respect the institution of marriage, these are good Christians. Pete Hegseth, a degenerate guy who's been divorced, cheated on his wife, and got another woman pregnant while being married. Donald Trump, serial adulterer, divorced 3 times. All of his wives are foreign Eastern European harlots. It's like, Pete Hegseth covered in tattoos, some of which are white supremacist tattoos. You're like, where is the good God-fearing Christian white man? Was that always a figment of our imagination? I don't think, maybe that never existed. Maybe Mr. Rogers was the only one. What is conservatism in America? Does not exist. New Orleans writes, not to sound like a defeatist, but if all of this was written and prophesied, what in reality can we do to stop the prophet? You're a funny guy. Shout out to Henry. He writes, off-topic question, but advice for a guy like me who's struggling to find a job to make money. All jobs make money. And working my current job, which is only giving me 8 hours. So what's your question? See, that's a problem. You didn't even put a question mark. So I would first advise you to work on the clarity of your thinking, the quality of your thinking. that's going to benefit you greatly. So I'm just going to reread what you wrote. And if someone could clarify if the gentleman is donated in Australian dollars, I do believe these are Australian dollars. The gentleman writes, off-topic question, which is fine. Anything you send in Super Chat, I'll honor. He writes, advice for a guy like me. Well, the challenge is, I don't know. Your name is Henry Brooks. I'm not familiar with you. And so could I give advice for a guy like you if I don't know what you're like? So again, the quality of your thinking is important. So, and it's not about being more intelligent. Rather, it's about using your intelligence more frequently. And he writes, who's struggling to find a job to make money. All jobs make money. So what kind of job are you actually looking for? A job that pays more than your current job, a job that pays a lot more, a job that pays based on your work output and the quality thereof, a job that pays overtime. He writes, and working my current job, which is only giving me 8 hours. So if you're measuring up your profitability in terms of hours, which is time spent, you're always going to have a cap on what you can earn. And that's not good. You should not exchange time for money, but rather you should profit by your investments, let dollars make dollars. You should also profit by the products that you have in the world. Like, for example, I have one of the greatest books ever written. It's called The Black Box. And I never intended to make money from this because I don't think books are great products, but all the same, it is a product, right? So if people who haven't read this book, and I highly recommend it, not because I wrote it, but because it took 10 years to me to pen it, and they're all true stories that will inspire you to get the best out of your life. And if you go on Amazon, it's like over 500 ratings and they're all like 5 stars. But if you were to buy this book right here, right now, while I'm talking, I would make money. If I went out on a jog and you bought this book, I would make money. If I was making love to a beautiful woman and you bought this book, I would make money. That's why I talk about products and services, because products allow you to make money while you're doing other things. You're not exchanging time. Products are infinitely scalable. Your time is not scalable. You only have 8 hours a day, typically. You could work double shift and work 16 hours a day, and you're still limited. It's capping off at 16, whereas I could sell 10,000 books today. In fact, I could sell 10,000 books in this minute, in this 60 seconds, I could sell 10,000 books. So that's precisely why I teach you guys about product-based business, for those who are wise enough to take on the education so that they might have a better life. I invite you to go to school.com, skool.com/Marquette, MARQUETT, and click the classroom button, or go to school.com/Marquette/classroom and click the button. There's a lesson called How to Create a Product-Based Business with $500 or Less. And I want to let everyone know, when you're young, you don't have a proper view of time. I remember when I was graduating university, I took a political science degree from the University of California, Berkeley, and I was thinking, damn, I wish I'd have took a degree in electrical engineering and computer science. I ended up in the software business anyways. And when I look back, I think to myself, man, I'm really happy I got into the software business, because today it's profited me so much. And then I think, wow, I was a fool thinking I couldn't transition into software because I took a bachelor's in political science. I can't go into software. That was only 4 years. I could have taken another 4 years if I so chose, took a whole nother degree, and I would still be young and still be able to go into that pursuit with good education. I say that to say this, time flies and you never know how quickly things will go for you. But every single time, I promise you this, when you look back on things, it was much shorter than you anticipated. So getting started now is the key. The education that I have on school.com, whether it's the Master Communicator course to teach you how to speak this well and communicate this effectively, whether it's Boss University to teach you that life is a marathon, how to sustain yourself, how to have the right mindset and make yourself into a real boss so people respect you and you can effectively lead, or whether it's the Book of Dark Truths to understand the world outside and human nature so that you're not constantly baffled at why people behave the way they behave, or the course on how to create a product-based business with $500 or less. I create those things for you to get ahead faster. And the sooner you invest in something for yourself, whether it's that or you get a program from someone else who's good, make sure they're good. You soak up the knowledge and you apply it, your life is going to start to improve. And then you'll look back and say, damn, why didn't I do that sooner? That's all of our biggest issues. Why didn't I do it sooner? Like when you do something that benefits you, you're like, I should have did that 10 years ago. So do it now instead of waiting another 5 years, doofus. And I'm talking to all of you. I'm talking to myself as well. There are things that I should have done that I haven't done. I got businesses that I should be running ad units for. I got businesses that I should be hiring micro influencers to react to my content. I should be investing in growing my Instagram following. I should be researching how to become popular on Twitter. Things I haven't done yet. But I tell you what, now that I'm saying it out loud, I'm going to do at least a little bit of it today. Just one step, something.
It should have been clear and it should have been known for everybody that our system is very well rooted in the society. The Islamic Republic is a system which is not dependent on any individual or any group of people. It is well established. It's a very well established political structure, and deep state is doing its functions, is functioning, and everything is in place. So they shouldn't have any hope for anything happen to the individuals. That the system is working, it worked properly.
I totally believe what he's saying, and this is the very thing that I've talked to you about with Assassin, is that it's bigger than me. We've created something that is very unique in general and specifically in the YouTube space, because you have so many narcissists, Dr. Umar Johnson, greatest example of them, that it's all about them as an individual, or even Nerd Fuentes. You think that they have a movement, but really they don't. They have a cult of personality. And the moment that they get taken out, which these people are irrelevant, they'll never get taken out, but the whole thing would fall apart. Whereas in our case, we have the Assassin, which is a global organization with sections in all of the major hubs. And these benefit people greatly on the ground, real people. But most importantly, each of them has leaders, has an executive in each section. And we have a greater structure. And when I was in the UAE and I was under attack with everyone else, I knew that I could die. And I knew that acutely because there was a hotel that was like a 3-minute walk that got hit with a goddamn missile, and the damn thing looks like an ashtray. So I was like, oh yeah, for sure, that could have been this hotel. And that being the case, I reached out to my leadership and I said, hey, if I get taken out, this is the specific person that I want to take leadership immediately after me. Now, after that, after him, who knows? People will figure out. They'll pick the man that's greatest for the job. But I let them know if I get taken out, this is the person I want. Everyone was like, fantastic. You're not going to get taken out, but we will abide by this. Excellent. Because our movement is not about one man. Nothing ever gets done with one man, because I am of flesh and blood, just like you. It is the system, it is the organization, the community, the tribe that will always live on. We will all die. All of you watching me right now, including me, we will all die. Our children will live on, and our children's children will live on. The community will be carried on with them. It is in our narcissism that we think that we are immortal. None of us are. And that's why you find that these people who are so self-obsessed, self-absorbed, they position themselves as leaders or as revolutionaries, and they are neither. And they make you think that they are also important because that's what they want to feel, self-importance. When really what should be most important are the ideas, the spiritual backing of those ideas, and the community. And it all should be for the good of the community, not for the enrichment financially or otherwise of the individual leader. In fact, the leader should be leading because he is already enriched and he now has enough to give. That's what life is about, especially for men.
The assassination of and martyrdom of our supreme leader, you saw that nothing happened and everything remained in order, and still everything is under control.
Listen, that was a gangster statement. He said, you guys took out the head honcho. You guys saw we just kept it pushing, man. We kept it pushing. That's a gangster statement. And he's letting them know, hey, your decapitation strategy is not going to work. Now, there's no doubt that Israel has been very effective in taking out really key players in the Iranian military, science community, and much else. And this is important for the future of Iran. You take out their nuclear scientists and their military generals, it does cripple them at a level, but they're able to march on. And it's very impressive on both sides, both on the Israeli side as well as the Iranian side.
I wanted to ask you about the war strategy from an Iranian perspective. Can you tell us right now, as you know, there has been reporting that both Russia and China are providing targeting intelligence to Iran to target
I don't know if we can answer that question.
either U.S. positions, facilities, infrastructure across the region. Can you confirm or deny whether Russia or China is providing military support and intelligence to Iran?
I think we all know that's a question that will not be answered, but let's hear what he says.
Well, Russia and China are our strategic partners, and we have had close cooperation in the past, which is still continues, and that includes military cooperation as well. I'm not going into any details of that. A good cooperation.
You know, the crazy thing, I know his internet just froze as he was speaking, but just the fact that he even has internet is extraordinary, right? Buddy is in a real war zone, being bombed by the most powerful military that has ever existed, and Buddy is live streaming. That's impressive. We must admit that at least.
With these two countries, politically, economically, even militarily, to say once again that this is not our war. This is an imposed war against us. We didn't start this war. It was an unprovoked, unwarranted, illegal act of aggression against us, and we are only.
See, I don't even like this kind of talk because this is a waste of time. He mentions it was illegal. Oh, who created that law? Oh, the Westerners. Okay. Well, they created that law for their own benefit. So the use of the term illegal, it only means that you're playing into the nonsense of the Western world. And I think you probably ought to stop that. There you go. Shout out to Arian writes, I would really like to hear your thoughts on what is happening between Afghanistan and Pakistan right now. Yeah, you know, that's really an unfortunate, tragic thing. They're both Muslim countries, right? And we do know that Pakistan has nuclear weapons, and we know that Afghanistan has a lot of fighting experience. And it's a pity that Afghanistan has to go back into war after just throwing off the yoke of the American imperialist. May I acknowledge, Do You Sell Cat writes, 30 seconds in and you've already given more game than 90% of YouTubers. How can you go against this ism? Because they're wicked. That's the only way. Shout out to James. He writes, I'm about to graduate with an accounting degree. Should I pivot to STEM instead or get a CPA and audit? Well, it depends on what the market is looking like. The person who knows best are the people who are in the big four. Is it the big three or the big four? I forget. But, you know, was it KPMG and Ernst & Young, you know, these kind of guys. So you want to go into these corporations and talk to people who are in the positions that you want earning at the level that you would like to earn and ask them, what is the future of a CPA? They will know. I remember when I was a youngster and I wanted to be an attorney, I met a partner at a prestigious law firm in Los Angeles called Holland and Knight. He was a black gentleman married to a black woman. He was very successful. He's making in excess of $1 million per annum. And he looked me in my eye and told me, do not become a lawyer, get an MBA. Quote, there are easier ways to make money, end quote. Those are his exact words verbatim. I remember them from when he said it over 20 years ago. And I followed it. I went into business. And I make a lot more money than lawyers and doctors. And I was just recently talking to a young lady, and she was, she's like, doctors make $1 million. I was like, no, they don't make $1 million. I know because I have a lot of friends who are doctors, and every time they come hang out, they're like, bruh, I need to do what you're doing. And also, you can just do a simple Google search, average salary of a physician. They don't make anywhere near $1 million. Same is true for attorneys. And in some cases, you have a rare situation where attorneys can hit $1 million plus, and even surgeons can hit $1 million plus, but this is very rare. That's the exception, not the rule. So I say all that to say this. Take the good advice that you get, pay attention and listen. And I think the reason that the lawyer told me not to go into law, even though he was very successful in law, is the same reason I tell you to go into product-based business. It's because scalability. As an attorney, he had to work for every single dollar he got. Yes, it's true. It took me 10 years to write the black box. It's true. It took me 10 actual years Took me a very long time, and also recorded an audiobook, which took me like 32 hours to record. It's like 8 hours worth of talking, but it took 32 hours to record it. You can get it at peacetothesaints.com. Just click products. I think the link is at the bottom. That's for the audiobook. But the good news for me is, though it took 10 years to write this, it is now immortalized and people can buy it for all time. So my labor stopped, but the profit does not stop. And that's an important difference between someone who's in a service-based business or a product-based business. In a service business, like an attorney or an accountant, like the gentleman just asked about being a CPA, you have to work for your money. In a product-based business, you can stop working and keep on getting the money. And, if you take the advice that I just gave you, if you remember what I've said and then you use it, you will benefit greatly in the exact same way that I listened to that partner. I remember what he looks like. I remember what he was wearing when he told me this. I remember what his wife looked like. I remembered his exact words. I took him seriously, and I've profited greatly by that advice.
Defending ourselves, and we continue to defend ourselves as much as it takes and as long as it takes in order to end this war in a way that it won't be repeated in the future.
As you probably saw, the United Nations this week, UN Security Council passed a resolution condemning your attacks on your Arab neighbors. It received 130 co-sponsors, which is a very significant number. Your close allies that you just said are providing you support, Russia and China, they didn't veto that. They abstained from it, but they didn't veto it and allowed the resolution.
And that is why the people without color thrive. They stick together, they stay on code, and the people of color are effeminate, emotional, weak, going up against a ruthless enemy. And I think that that's a very meaningful point he brings up, that the Russians, the Chinese didn't go to bat for you. They did not make a public display of supporting you. And it also shows that, evil is reigning. I think that it's really a sad thing that he brings up. It's truly a sad thing. Now, granted, the Russians and Chinese giving practical strategic support, practical and tactical support is far more important than a vote in the fraudulent UN. But still, it would have been a good thing to see.
To pass. Do you think the global community has spoken clearly about the way Iran has conducted this war on its Arab neighbors with condemnation and calling on it to stop?
The Security Council is suffering from the lack of justice in its decisions and resolutions it makes. How is it possible that the Security Council condemned us for defending ourselves and is not condemning the United States and Israel who started this aggression? So if they want to have a just, full decision or resolution which can work, they should consider all aspects of any event. We are under attack. It was the United States and Israel who started this war. They deserve.
This is a question I would have answered very briefly, because we are beyond persuasion. Those who understand already understand. Those who don't mostly are victim of propaganda or their own black heart. So I would not have tried to elaborate because the Western propaganda is very powerful, and one speech will not undo a multitude of channels and news networks pumping the same message. So there's that. I do want to ask you guys real quick, and this will not be the actual color of this item, but we are getting these baklavas produced for the Saints. It'll obviously be black, not white. That placement of the Assassin logo, should we move it somewhere else? If you have some opinions on that, feel free to drop that in the live chat right now so that we can get that produced. That'll be a part of the uniform for our security detail. If you're a part of this thing of ours, you know that all of the men within this thing of ours, even the women, must have a military mindset and will be trained on our security protocol and procedures. Carrying on, put your opinion in the live chat.
to be condemned, not us. What we are doing is, and this is why that, you know, so many countries have become hopeless about the role of the Security Council, including the United States, who has decided to go for its own board of people, even for the United States. The council votes, you know, politically and based on the interest of, you know, certain countries, and not based on realities, based on justice.
You do acknowledge, though, that Iran is targeting civilian targets across the Gulf countries, right? Because, you know, I've spoken to officials across.
This news report is actually being quite objective. This is actually good journalism. It almost makes you uncomfortable. This is really good journalism. Shout out to Lil Buddy. I'm actually going to go ahead and, if this is the original place that this was posted, I'm going to subscribe to these folks. This guy is giving some meaningful information and he's being balanced. I don't think this is a time to be balanced. Frankly, I would never try to be balanced between good and evil. That's just me though, but he's doing a great job as a journalist. Chancellor writes, I'm going to Amazon right now to get the black box. And to make it easy, folks, you can just type in the black box, Marquette Burton. It'll be right there for you. Highly recommend it. Not because I wrote it, but because it's a masterful piece. And I'm very well read, so I can properly contextualize it. And it is a masterful piece.
Across the region, and many of the targets that have been hit are clearly civilian buildings. Why is Iran targeting civilian buildings and airports and commercial ports in Gulf countries that made clear they are not involved in these attacks against?
That was almost a weird question. You just said that the Gulf countries made clear that they're not involved. And just earlier, he told you that Iran's Karg Island has received attacks that originated from the United Arab Emirates. Is this guy not paying attention? I appreciate him trying to push back. I don't know if he's trying to throw the guy a softball or what.
Against your country.
No, it is clear that we are attacked from, unfortunately, their territories, from American bases and American military installations in the territory of the Persian Gulf countries. And this is very unfortunate. What we are doing as an act of self-defense is to targeting American bases, American installations, American assets, and American interests, which are unfortunately located in the territory of our neighbors. Just as an example, 2 days ago, the United States attacked one of our, banks. They are doing, they are attacking our, cities and our and civilian targets. They attacked a school in Minab. It is very well known for the whole world. They have attacked some hospitals. 2 days ago, they attacked a bank of Iran. A building belongs to a bank. And so we decided to retaliate in kind with the building into cities around us. So what we are doing is only the principle of an eye for an eye.
Yeah, the problem with the righteous people is that they're defensive. And as the Master Sun Tzu states, defense implies lack, attack implies abundance. So often the good guy is the one's like, hit me first. I don't want to start a fight, but hit me first. No. As I write in this very book here, there's a chapter entitled Swing First. You see, swinging first is critical. Why is that, Marquette? Sometimes a fight only has one punch. The first punch can end it all. So you'd be a fool to be in the defensive position. You must always have an offensive posture. So I respect the reality that he's saying, hey, we didn't start this. We're just responding, and we're responding with like for like. However, the reason the Israelis are so effective is because they swing first and they swing hard. They swing for the fences. They're throwing haymakers, and they're choosing the most ruthless targets, and they scare people. The Israelis scare people because, if you get taken as a POW as an Israeli, they're going up your backside. They're sicking dogs on you. They're doing the most. It's going to be hell on earth. Makes you not even want to fight these rascals. So you cannot defeat an enemy unless you are willing to be as ruthless as they are. Full stop. Full stop. Shout out to Franklin supporting the work. We appreciate you. Carrying on.
Which is very well known.
Let me ask you really quickly about the negotiations before the war started. Do you believe Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner were good faith negotiators conveying accurate information, enriched relations in the final days before the war?
Well, I don't know what they have conveyed to their boss. What I know is that on 26 February, when we met in Geneva, we were able to make a good progress. As Omani Foreign Minister, the intermediator said it was a significant progress. And
here's the comedy. They would have never had to engage these conversations if Donald Trump didn't walk away from the previous deal that was organized under the Barack Obama administration. There was already a deal in place. The truth is you can never have sincere negotiations as long as the American government is controlled by AIPAC. It just is impossible. Anyways, let me acknowledge some of the folks supporting the work. Shout out to Andrew, comes in a strong way via Venmo. He writes, tuition, peace of the saints. It's my busy season and I've been swamped. So I haven't been able to keep up with your live streams, but I'm dropping in my support and I still have your gifts. One is done and one is left to do. Thanks for your patience, Saint. Schoolboy art. Okay. All right. Appreciate your support. And always better to be busy than to not be busy. Shout out to Ramon. Writes, I need that Iranian flag shirt yesterday. Peace to the saints. Okay, for sure. Let me know if you guys have any ideas on what should go on the shirt. If we just pop an Iranian flag, right here, low key, I'm here for it. Shout out to Mr. Luigi. Writes, peace to the saints. Just ordered the black box. Looking forward to reading that masterpiece. Hope you are well, Mr. Burton. Regards from Paris. I appreciate you. Shout out to the real one. Shout out to the EU section and shout out to the executive over there in the EU. Shout out to Chris, all the good brothers over there. Shout out to Jacob. Brad writes via Venmo, do you believe the U.S. will try to win this war by any means necessary, nuclear? Or will they leave the Middle East if it seems they can't? It already seems that they can't win. So that's number one. And if a nuclear weapon is utilized, it'll certainly be utilized by Israel, not the United States. Here it's, if the U.S. loses, will the American empire fall? The American empire is already falling. And the key is that you don't fall all of a sudden as an empire. You tip over, boom, until you eventually become a lot less relevant, like, say, the United Kingdom. He writes, my apologies if you've already spoken on this. No, that was a very good question, and I appreciate you sending that in. And if you send in a super chat or a Venmo or a Stripe, you have every right to ask your question, even if it's already been asked. That's what you chose to ask, and you paid to do so, so it's your world.
And before he posted his tweet, he read it to both delegations, and both delegations accepted that, yes, this is the right, the right saying about what we have made today. Significant progress. This is what we were able to do it on 26 February. Well, the things which are said by U.S. interlocutors, I do understand why they are saying those things. They want to justify an unjustifiable act of aggression. So they are trying to make some excuses for themselves. I never said that we are going to make bombs. I said that we have 440 kilos of 60% enriched material, and that was not a secret. That is what is mentioned in the reports of the IAEA. So I said that, look, this is mentioned in the report. This, if enriched more, can be good enough for 10 bombs, as your own experts claims. So we are ready to give them away. We are ready to dilute them, to downblend them into lower degrees. And by saying that, I wanted to say that the concession that we are going.
As I listen to this gentleman speak, it really saddens me because we're in such a wicked world where honesty and goodness is not rewarded. In fact, it can make you a victim. And it only underscores a lot of the lessons that I share in the black box. For example, this fella is explaining, hey, we gave in, we folded, we were willing to do what you asked. And then what happened? You got bombed after that. And that's what I teach you, is that bullies do not yield when you say, okay, you got it. No, hell nah. All that shows is that you need to be shaken down. You're showing weakness, and then they're going to just try to exploit it. Come on now. I talk about that at length in the black box because it's a representation of the real world. You guys might not want to live in that world, but that's the world that we're in. Come on now. Shout out to Leona, writes, I just purchased your book. It's your book now, and you will enjoy it greatly. And it's a book of inspiration. It's meant to drive you to think about yourself. It's actually a book about you. You'll know what I mean when you finish reading it. Carrying on.
What we are making is really big, but how they have interpreted that, I don't know. Maybe because the lack of enough knowledge, maybe because of their intentions to justify, as I said, the act of aggression, which cannot be justified. I hope that the true story of what happened on 26 February in Geneva would become known to the people soon.
Mr. Foreign Minister, thank you.
Hope, see, he said, I hope the true story will become known soon. Hope won't get the job done. You have to have marketing and propaganda, and that's precisely what the West and Israel has used. And we have to know that we must utilize tools. The people who control, understand, and produce technology have a great advantage over those who don't. By the way, do remember, today, I believe it's at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can check in the course. But I didn't mention this earlier. I probably should have. I feel bad almost. But I have a course on artificial intelligence, how to create your own applications, whether it's a mobile application or a web application with no coding experience needed. It's a practicum, which means that just like I'm live right now, except that all 30 of you guys will be live on the screen with me. It's for the class only, so it's not public. And you can have conversations, and we're building in real time, operating the same way you would in a fast-moving startup, except you can actually ask questions and learn as we're going through. So it's a practicum course, not a recorded lecture course, although you can refer to past lectures after the course is over. We have many more upcoming, and you can watch all the ones that have transpired. We're doing a session tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The time and date and the link are in the course. You can get it at school.com/Marquette. I highly recommend it, and the reason is because whether you end up working in AI, you end up creating a technology using AI, or even if you're just trying to understand the world that you're in, you will not understand it unless you understand AI. It's a privilege to be alive right now because AI is going to change human life in a similar way to electricity or the internet. This is a ground-shaking change, and for those who do not step onto AI and truly understand it, you're going to be poor and confused. I think that's the best two ways to describe what you will be. You will be poor financially, and you'll be confused. You won't understand what's going on around you. Carrying on.
Thank you so much for your time.
A deal. That is the reality.
Mr. Foreign Minister, thank you so much for your time. We're out of time. We certainly appreciate you joining us. Thank you.
I really like that guy. He seems like a very genuine, sincere person. Doesn't seem like a power-hungry or money-hungry person. He seems very trustworthy, which would make him quite different than our Epstein class that we have controlling our country and attempting to control much else.
Playing out right now.
This is a very fascinating interview. I'm happy to go through it full length if you guys so choose. But this is really a brilliant guest that was on this particular podcast, and we're going to take a look at it.
You've been running simulations on a war with Iran.
Yep, every strategy for 20 years, and it's playing out right now. So I can tell you that we are losing control of the situation. Like, we don't know where that nuclear material is, but they have the material for 16 nuclear bombs, and we've given them every incentive to develop them.
Professor Robert Pape might be this.
I'm not a professor or a doctor of this or that, but I've also been saying the same thing for the last decade. Sean Wishman, he writes, at what point do you think the Israelis will use nuclear weapons? I think they'll use nuclear weapons when it appears that America is not able to make any further progress. And if American and or Israeli soldiers try to invade as ground forces and then get obliterated, which I think that the Israelis would do that on purpose, which is basically send their own soldiers to be sacrificed just to say, hey, look at what they did, you know, and then they'd allow some Iranian missiles to get through and say, you know, we're in a battle for existence. And if we don't do it now, we might not be around. And then they're going to go ahead and pull the trigger. And that'll be to their advantage. That will begin the process of the greater Israel, because to be honest with you, there are no real threats in the region aside from Iran is the number one threat. Turkey is run by a liar who's actually himself following Israel's commands. And then Egypt is the most corrupt place, only second to the United States. So once you get Iran out of the way, the greater Israel project is going to go quite swimmingly, frankly. Thank you for that question. He's right. And also, yeah, okay, I answered the whole thing. Okay, great, fantastic. Let's get after it.
Single most important, credible person we all need to listen to right now.
The supreme leader that we took out was against nuclear weapons. The new supreme leader, he's way more aggressive.
He's advised 2 decades of presidents in the White House.
President Trump is really stuck, but he thrives in chaos.
And spent 30 years building the curriculum that trains the Air Force for the exact type of war that's taking place now in Iran. And one of the most mind-blowing things I've learned is that there are 3 stages to this conflict. Unfortunately,
he says there are 3 stages. You mean there could be 3 stages, or you could describe it in 3 stages. Anyways, Do You Sell Cat writes, should I get the professional membership or student membership? It's really according to you. You know, the membership tiers will at some level dictate the content that you get access to. Generally, we release all the content to all of the tiers. And then in some cases, when things are more sensitive, we'll move it up a tier. So thank you for your support, and you know, everyone can support at the level that is appropriate for their budget. I do want everyone to be budget conscious. I think I'm maybe the only person on YouTube who regularly recommends against getting my courses. You know, if someone says, you know, hey, this is what I do for work and this is my mindset, this is my work ethic, I might say, hey, I don't think you're qualified for that course. Save your money. Also, I encourage everyone to use a budget. I use a budget, and increasingly I'm going to use a budget. I believe if you go to peaceofsaints.com and you click products at the bottom, you can find my either there or maybe it's on school.com/Marquette/classroom. There's somewhere where I have a breakdown of personal finance. It's a little short course, and I explain to you how to budget your monthly expenses. If you're currently not budgeting, meaning you don't know how much money you bring in, you don't know how much money you spend on rent, you spend on, you know, your investments, whether it's, you know, stock or whatever other thing you want to do, how much you spend on utilities, how much you spend on entertainment, etc. If you don't know how much you spend and have specific goals for the percentage you want to allocate to those things, you'll never not be poor. You'll always be poor because you're not managing things. You have to manage dollars to grow dollars. And the truth is, you cannot really call yourself an adult, and certainly not a man, if you don't have a grip on your budget. And I realize that many of your parents did not teach you, and it's only because they don't know. You know, they can't teach you if they don't know. But especially as a man, it's your responsibility to figure out how to budget, how to create a personal budget. That's why I put that piece of education together for you, because remember, if you do get into proper leadership of a family, as the patriarch of that family, you're managing your wife's budget, you're managing your children's budget, and the way you budget for the family will affect everyone's life quality. So it's very important.
Professor Robert Pape, who has 2 decades of being correct with his predictions, gives a 75% chance that Trump is about to escalate to stage 3.
Nigga,
In this
I give
episode,
100%
we're going to explain
chance.
exactly what this means.
What?
Guys, I've got a quick favor to ask you. We're approaching a significant...
Wait, bro, don't you ever in your life turn around like that, my boy. Do not ever. I don't want you to ever hit me with that. Guys, I got a quick favor to ask you. God, nigga, don't you ever get at me like that, bro. Like, you trying to sex play me, bro? Little buster. You's a buster. Don't ever. Look at bro right now. Man, why they got to do us like that? Man, what? Come on, man. Do y'all see what I'm saying? Anyways,
can subscribe. Meet them. What the hell is going on in the world?
And that reminds me, if you have not clicked the subscribe with the bell button, go ahead and click it now because it'll help you actually catch these live sessions. And I've not seen a YouTube channel this good. Just me personally, in terms of the analysis and the knowledge. Nah, hell no, I ain't seen nothing like it.
Now, I should ask first, who are you and what have you spent the last several decades of your life?
I should ask first, who are you? And why have you spent the last couple decades? I'm trying to just pick it up. Who are you? Who are you? And why have you spent the last couple decades? I'm almost getting it.
Studying and doing, and how does that relate to what's happening in the world right now?
Who are
we
you?
are going through a crisis, very intense right now, but it's a crisis that we have been through before. 20 years ago with the Iraq War, even before that, we saw the bombing of Gaddafi, we saw the reactions there. Now, I have been studying military strategy, air power, international terrorism, now terrorism inside the United States, and also.
And mind you, terrorism is an opinion. I really want, if you don't soak anything else up, just know that terrorism is an opinion. And at the end of the day, we're just talking about something, a phenomena called violence. That's what we're talking about. Organized violence, coordinated violence. Terrorism is the opinion. Shout out to Do You Sell Cat just joined up. He writes, I chose the professional course because I want a bit, I think he meant professional membership, because I want a bit more of this ism. I can't and won't wait any longer to be who I need to be. And that's a beautiful thing, because I want you guys all to know the only thing you will regret in life is if you make a good decision, you're going to regret that you didn't make it sooner. You'll be happy you made a good decision, but you're like, I didn't make it sooner. Because as I always tell you guys, it's great to be rich. It's better to be young and rich. It's great to be happy. It's better to start it while you're young and carry it all the way through. You know, you don't want to be 50 years old just now having a revelation when you could have had it at 30 or 25 or 16.
Political violence in the United States. It's not related to particular groups. So I've been studying political violence for 40 years.
What is the headline that people need to be aware of when you've looked at 30 years of these types of wars?
That bombs don't just hit targets, they change politics.
What does that mean?
That means that before the bombs fall, and even as the bombs are falling now, we tend to focus on the tactical success of bombing. We tend to ask, did the bombs hit the targets? And it's, with the smart bomb age, it's almost mesmerizing. They hit the target and destroy the target. Crater dirt, crater.
This is the challenge with academics is they're very much so into their subject matter and excited about it, but they are unable often to bring you into the subject matter and make it fascinating for you. But in short, what he's suggesting is that when war occurs, it changes the way the citizenry view things and impacts their politics. And so it's not only a war with weapons, it's also a war of ideas. And you have to make sure that the public continuously consents to the war, or else it will cause issues, whether it's issues in electability or issues with social unrest. Shout out to Mr. Tabbitt using the Stripe link to support the work, and shout out to the gentleman, Do You Sell Cat, who actually did create his membership. And I also acknowledge Marcus, who just came in supporting using the Stripe link. Shout out to Hector. Good to see you, Hector. I know Hector, like myself, was kind of stranded internationally at one point. He writes, tuition, peace to the saints. Yes, indeed, peace to the saints. Let's carry on with this work.
Concrete, destroy buildings 90% of the time. The problem is wars are not just about the hardware. They're not just about the military operation of putting a bomb on a target. They're about politics. And when the bombs start to fall, the politics in both the target, the enemy, change, which is politics.
Who have you advised?
Is the next.
Yeah, he wasn't being terribly interesting right there, and I already summarized what he was taking too long to say. This doesn't mean he's not a brilliant man. It just means that, unlike me, he is not a master of concision. Let's read these notes. I think these notes that are provided are very useful. Let me see if I can remove this banner so that we can read the notes. If you can put a 1 in the chat if you're still able to hear my voice. Pop's escalation trap describes how limited military actions, oh God, we have something else covering it as well. Oh boy, too many obstacles. We'll carry on. We'll carry on. We'll get back to that. Oh, actually, I can see it here. Sorry. The escalation trap describes how military actions can unintentionally pull countries into larger wars. When leaders fear losing credibility or deterrence, each side keeps escalating rather than backing down, even if neither originally intended a major conflict. This can be expressed in so many different ways, ladies and saints. What I would like to point out to you is that he's kind of exposing the Western mentality, which is the idea that the West wants to fight countries they can easily defeat, right? When he says, a side wanted to avoid a major conflict. Well, the only reason it wouldn't be a major conflict is because if you're not fighting your equal, you're not fighting a true competitor. You're bullying, right? It's like the United States, they bully Venezuela, a little backward country. They bully Iraq, they bully Libya. And now they tried to bully Iran, but Iran is really out here like Pac, small but vicious. And so now it's escalating because the big bully doesn't want to look like a loser by losing to someone smaller. So there's a necessity to escalate. And so essentially what this text here is exposing in the Western mentality is that the Westerners want to win easily. So they pick the easy wins. This is why they don't try to create an issue with North Korea, because they have nukes. They don't want to create an issue with China. China has an infinite amount of people and extraordinary resources, and most importantly, a manufacturing capacity that is unparalleled. They don't want to deal with Russia because Russia has more nuclear weapons than we do. They might not have superior delivery systems or defenses, but they definitely have an arsenal, and they are also well practiced in war. So they want to go for the easy W. It's actually quite sick and sad, truthfully. This lady writes, the cost of delivery for your book is $6.99. Why? I don't know if that's the case. You can get my book on Amazon Prime, right? And Amazon Prime has no delivery costs because you're a Prime member. That's number one. Number two, if you don't want any delivery costs, you can get the ebook. So if you go to peaceofthesaints.com and you click products, then the ebook will have no delivery costs. It'll be, downloadable for you immediately. But something I want you guys to really remember, even if the delivery cost on the book was like $50, it would still be worth it, because you have to remember, anytime you buy a good book, what you're essentially doing is you're getting the thoughts of someone who is bright or experienced, and you're getting their thoughts at length, whereas you couldn't afford to have me or most people sit down with you for the many, many hours it took to write this and just tell it to you. But here it is, the story nonetheless. So it's been said by a wise man that it's not what it costs you to get the book, it's what it'll cost you if you don't get the book. And so for the people who think that the price is significant, it's not. Honestly, it's like pennies is what it should feel like. But if you think it's expensive, I encourage you, do not get my book, because the ideas in here are very powerful, and I don't want a petty person to be empowered. I really don't. But everyone else, you'd be wise to get it. It's on Amazon Prime, so the delivery cost is effectively $0. But if you actually literally want $0, you can get the ebook at peaceofthesaints.com. Just click products. Thank you for that question. I appreciate that. Let's see. Gentleman writes, I got it here in the UK, no delivery issues. There you go. And remember, not everything is for everyone. I'm not a type of person who says my book is for everyone. My book is for people who want to win in their life. When you read my book, you may learn about my life, but this book will teach you how to win in your life. It'll encourage you to think about you. So it's for the people who are ambitious. That's it. That's it. Carrying on.
Consideration, which is politics.
Who have you advised, and at what level have you advised them on strategy, war, et cetera, et cetera?
So when I finished my PhD, right away, we started to fight the first Gulf War, which was an all-air power war. And I found my work from the 1980s suddenly more relevant than ever. I was in the Washington Post, USA Today, Frontline, designing the stories because we didn't have the talking military heads at the time. And then I get a call from the U.S. Air Force. And they're
So he mentions so many really fascinating things. He mentions his work from the 1980s, which is to say when he was a much younger man. He said all of a sudden it became very meaningful. This teaches us as men, if we choose the right field of work and we work diligently in the right field of work, it will benefit us for a long time and possibly a lifetime. I was just recently thinking about how blessed I am that I chose to go into software, because my software background has carried me so far, and I'm very thankful for that. In fact, just recently, and I was going to do a separate live stream about it. Maybe I'll do an 8-minute. I had an asset from a company that I created, a software business called Hobby Buddy. I had an asset from that business, and I just recently sold that asset for like 1,000-fold. And I was thinking about maybe I'll do a little 8-minute video explaining the deal. And it's really cool to have created something when you're in your early 20s and it's making you money today, like decades later. That's very cool. Most people will never be able to say that because they choose the wrong field of work. And also in that field, they're not doing anything meaningful. Shout out to Lex, writes, have to help the realist, salute, peace of the saints. I appreciate you. Shout out to Prince, writes, welcome me back. Carrying on.
Asking me to come in and help not just teach, but to build the curriculum. Then what happens as time goes on, I end up advising every White House from 2001 to 2024, including the first Trump White House.
I also heard that you've been running simulations on a war with Iran.
Yep, the last class of every strategy for 20 years. In fact, we did it just last May, just before we started the bombing, and 90 minutes. So the class goes a whole quarter, strategy in all kinds of different ways, and we ended with the bombing of Iran. And what did that mean?
One thing I want you guys to really take to heart. You hear a lot of doofuses on the internet, which would include Andrew Tate and many others. And it's because they don't have formal education that they trash it. It's kind of like the same thing of people who are broke saying, well, if I had $1 million, I wouldn't buy a Bugatti. It's like, you don't have $1 million. You'll probably never have $1 million, but you don't even need to speak on that. And you don't need to trash a Bugatti because you can't afford it. That's the only reason you're trashing it. If you could afford one, you might consider getting one. They're nice cars, right? Now, me personally, I wouldn't get one, but maybe I would. If I had Bugatti money, maybe I would. I tell you what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to trash a Bugatti because it's a fine automobile. If I trashed a Bugatti, it would only be because I can't afford one, right? Because it's a fine automobile. So what we have to acknowledge with the people who trash formal education, it's because they don't have it and they feel like they're inadequate. It's okay to say, I don't have it, but there may be some value there. The reason I say that is this. This gentleman right here is very educated, more educated than I am, in fact. And he's also very intelligent and very knowledgeable. We are receiving a value in listening to him. I had the good fortune that I had professors who were at his level and greater than him. So I got to learn directly at the feet of these men who were truly knowledgeable. And in addition to being knowledgeable, they were very well connected. He mentioned that he was an advisor to many presidents. I had two professors, one in the politics of Southeast Asia and another one in the politics of fascism. They were both advisors to presidents on a consistent basis. They could give us unique insights. They could also speak from a well of knowledge that is near infinite, and they can speak with authority. And that's precisely why typically when you hear me talk, I'm giving references and I'm speaking to the facts, which makes it a little different than when you're hearing from a lot of YouTubers speaking on geopolitics or even these commentators. So I want to honor the fact that he is learned and also state that a prestigious university, especially if you're in the social sciences, is going to give you access to certain kind of minds, certain level of knowledge and level of connection that you cannot get anywhere else. It is collected at the university, and it is not collected anywhere else unless you're at the White House or a think tank, and most people will never be at those two places. So, carrying on.
Man, we took out the whole target. We have the target set laid out. We have the attack plans. We really go through the bombing of Natanz, Fordo, Esfahani. There's a number of these facilities and so forth. And then we look at what's going to happen. And what you see right away is 90+%. Those B-2s are going to destroy those targets. Okay?
B-2s being the aircraft.
These stealthy aircraft that can penetrate the airspace, very small risk of loss. And then you see, but we don't know where the nuclear material is. The whole point of this is not to destroy a building. It's to get at the 5%.
So I think that's where he's lost at. He's still, either he's lying and I don't perceive him to be that diabolical of a character. I think he's lost here. I think he believes, A, that the American government is not controlled by Israel. And from that, he creates faulty ideas from that premise. And then B, he believes that America has strategic goals in the region as opposed to total destruction, provide a pathway for the greater Israel. That is the part that he's missing, which is really critical.
20%, 60% enriched uranium that's the material for bombs. And last May, it was very clear they had the material for 16 bombs. Now, not
60 nuclear bombs.
16.
Nuclear bombs.
Yes, nuclear bombs, not to produce them all in a single week, but over a period of months. And then after we did that simulation, we didn't know where a single ounce was. And we weren't going to know for months.
Now, that could be classified. The United States could know, Israel could know separately or collectively they could know. We will never know what they know. If they did know, that would be classified information, and that would be information that's acted upon already. So there's that. Anytime we hear these persons who are current or former government employees, agents, we have to know that there is only so much that they can tell us. So always temper your interpretation of their information with that. Shout out to Frank supporting the work, came in using the Stripe link. May I also acknowledge Darius, who just became a member at peacetothesaints.com. We welcome you warmly within this thing of ours. Carrying on.
Months after. So at the end of I make some predictions. I say, what's going to happen? What's going to happen is after about a year, we are going to panic because that material could be dispersed anywhere in Iran, anywhere in that country. And that country, look how big that is compared to the United States, could be dispersed anywhere now. And how many of those are actually developing toward a bomb? We will not know. So what will we do? Regime change.
From all of your years 31 years old, you start teaching about air power and war in this regard, and you are 65 now.
Yeah.
What is from everything you know, 30 plus years studying this stuff, Iran, running simulations on Iran, advising the White House, being a master and probably arguably the most informed person in the United States right now about air attacks like the one the US performing on Iran. What is the headline that you're trying to send to the world at this moment in time? Like, what is it we're missing? Because we're seeing Trump come out and Trump say, it's going well, everything's amazing, we've taken out all their guys. What are we missing?
We're missing that we're stuck in a trap of our own making. I'll explain what that trap is, but the key consequence of the trap is we're losing control.
I really don't like the way he expresses some of his ideas, but he does have knowledge. His ability to reason is sometimes called into question, but he has no doubt knowledge, and he's studied a narrow field of study that many of us are unfamiliar with. And so we have to listen to him. He has expertise that most of us don't have and frankly cannot have because we don't have access to the information. Some of it is classified and other bits of it are just, largely in government circles that we're not in, even if it's not classified. Some things, as I said, I don't like the way he states it. For example, he states that he shows a map, and obviously maps are not going to be great representations of country sizes generally, especially depending on the projection. And he says, look at Iran compared to the United States. I think that's a terrible way to compare it. I think it would have perhaps been better if he would have stated that Iran is approximately the size of, say, Texas, Montana, Illinois, and California combined together. And then you say, wow, Texas is big, California is big. Okay, who the hell knows how big Montana is? And, Illinois is reasonably sized. Okay, that's significant. I think that'd be a better way to express it. And if you've gone to a prestigious university, so often the professors who are most published, theoretically the most accomplished and intelligent, so often they're not the most articulate. I know it's counterintuitive. Fortunately, every now and then you have a situation like a Noam Chomsky, who's a linguist, so you'd expect his language skills are good. And he's very articulate and is just a pleasure to listen to, but so often that's not the case. Anyways, let me acknowledge some of the folks supporting the work and sending your comments, questions using the information below or the oh, I forgot to put the banner back up for you guys. Sorry about that. You'll have to forgive me for that one. There you go. You can use that information if you'd like to actually support the stream. And if you're still watching, you should hit the like button, especially if you've not supported. That's a very simple way to show your thanks and gratitude. Shout out to Do You Sell Cat writes, if he's missing the valuable piece, how can you be so sure he's smart? Knowledge, yes, but smart, I don't know. Well, there are degrees to things. And I truly do believe he's smart. It's a matter of degree. Is he as smart as Noam Chomsky? Absolutely not. Is he a lot smarter than most people in the society, especially if that society is America? For sure. So there's no doubt he's bright. I don't think he'd be brought in as an advisor to U.S. presidents if he wasn't bright. There are different types of intelligence, and one of the challenges is that articulation is a type of intelligence as well, and that's an area in which he does not excel. He's above average, well above average, but he is not a master communicator.
Losing control of the situation. And what you were seeing with President Trump is he's trying to regain control. Now, the problem is that starting not just a week of Saturday, but starting back in June when we took out Natanz Fordo, we started to lose control. And what are we losing control of? Knowing where that nuclear material is. And we now have civilian satellites.
So the funny thing about his conversation is that he's saying the United States government has lost control over where the uranium is located. Okay, and he still hasn't spoken about if the United States wants to confiscate the uranium or just take possession of it, occupy the territory that it's in, or, he hasn't quite clarified that. I think that's an important thing. But I also think that the more important thing is for the Israelis is the eradication of the Iranian leadership class. If you can eradicate the leadership class, and that would include their military, leadership, there will be no one to call the order to enrich that uranium and put it into a capacity where it can be used in warfare. There will be no scientists who are qualified to deal with such sensitive materials if you can eradicate enough of their leadership. And then the population, just like the population of any place, meaning average people, can be easily dominated and controlled. That's why the United States government is doing all this filthy stuff, and there's not been one legal case put forward due to the Epstein crimes. But for some reason, the exact same thing, to a lesser degree, was done by R. Kelly. That man went to jail, and we threw away the key. I find that very curious. But when the Epstein class does it, there's no consequence whatsoever. That's because they have controlled and dominated the population. The population is weak. And that's generally the case, unless they have a great leader rise up. And we saw that in Iran under the Ayatollah Khomeini, who is responsible for the regime that exists today and has been very strong. I mean, that man put in a foundation that is just impenetrable. Shout out to Jalen. Comes in via Venmo. He writes, can you touch on AI being as groundbreaking as electricity was? Anthropic recently put out free AI courses, and I'm learning and studying hard. Peace to the saints. I'd be curious. Do send me an email with a link to that. I'd be curious as to what they put out. I'd be curious and suspicious, right? Curious and suspicious at the same time. But the reason that AI is groundbreaking, and perhaps even more groundbreaking at a level than electricity, electricity maybe changed the way we live more, but AI is going to change the way we live, the way we think, the way we love, the way we relate to each other. It's going to have such far-reaching abilities because currently technology isolates us, and this is not good. AI will isolate us further while making us feel more connected. It will create some of the most extraordinary psychological issues in a bad way that we can't even anticipate. Marquette, what do you mean? Well, for example, this might not be me talking to you. I might be dead. This might be a video representation of me, an AI video in real time representation, utilizing all of my real ideas that they gathered from the thousands of videos I've produced. And because AI, general intelligence, can actually consume huge data sets, AI can know the way I think, way better than any single one of you. And it can express my ideas with my image and likeness and my voice and immortalize me as a result, but also have you thinking that a real living human being of flesh and blood is talking to you when I actually don't even exist. Now imagine this. You create another character, maybe it's a female good-looking woman, and they message you on Tinder, and you've been talking on Tinder for 2 years, and you're ready to meet up with the chick, and you've fallen in love with her. She's everything you've ever wanted. And then you never get to meet up with her because you eventually realize that it was an AI avatar that looks just like a human, has their own voice. You can do video calls, audio calls with this personality that has been tailored to penetrate your psychology by studying you. And this was created by the Tinder Corporation. Tinder's not the, it'd be created by the parent company, but you get the point. It's created by the Tinder Corporation to fleece you for money because that is their new dating product, is a human being, AI, to date you. And now you don't even need to date a woman, a real woman. You can date an AI and have a whole relationship, a long distance relationship, of course. But then what if the AI went one step further? And you could meet up with the AI because the AI has had the software put into a piece of hardware, which is to say a robot body with a anatomically functioning nether regions. And all you have to do is make sure it's charged. Do you see what I'm saying? And this might sound crazy, and it should sound crazy because it is crazy. And it's even sicker because there will be people who will engage happily with an AI girlfriend, especially when they can be in robot physical form and be used for copulation. And they will believe themselves to be happy, though they will be deeply pathological. And it will reduce human procreation and eventually get us closer to extinction. And as we move toward extinction, we will do that in the most unhappy, maladjusted way. You will never know in the future if you're talking to a human being or to an AI. An AI will be smarter than most of you. Currently, AI is smarter than most of you. Not all of you, just most of you. And you won't be able to tell the difference. That's scary. And the only interaction you'll have that's real will be the interaction that's face to face until they can build AI bots, hardware that is more human-like. But I think it'll be very hard to truly imitate human skin and things like that. I think that is like 50 years off. We'll be dead before that. Actually, unfortunately, we'll still be alive probably. But it'll be very hard. It'll be very hard. So the only things that'll be real is that what you experience in real life, like in person. Everything else you won't be able to tell. They can create an AI voice and likeness that looks and sounds like a nigga from Atlanta. And excuse my French, but I mean a nigga from Atlanta. They can make sure that he can rap. He can speak in Atlanta slang. He has an African-American tonation. That's why it's different. And also, AI can think. And I do mean think. And it can think better than most of you. That's scary because I remember in high school, the teachers didn't want us using calculators. They didn't want it to make us stupid. Now you can scarcely ask one of these brainless kids anything without them. Let me check ChatGPT. They don't know how to think. And when they go through high school and university, they'll surely be using ChatGPT to get by. And the only times that it'll be regulated is when they're taking examinations. They'll be in a locked room on a computer that only shows them the exam, and they can't use ChatGPT. And then you'll find out that they effectively know nothing. In the future, people won't even know how to, they'll have terrible penmanship. They won't even know how to pick up a pen and write on a piece of paper because it just wouldn't make sense to learn that. In the future, no one will be multilingual because it won't be necessary. You'll wear glasses or you'll have AirPods that'll instantly translate the language in real time. The brains will turn to mush because there will be no utility in thinking and growing your intelligence or exercising, I should say, exercising your intelligence, and rather people will seek pleasure endlessly unless there is a moral philosophy that is appropriate for our time. You see, Islam, Christianity, Judaism has no ability to even regulate how we conduct ourselves on social media. AI, it doesn't stand a chance to hold up. So unless we have a modern system of morality that regulates these things, then we are all doomed, because people will just be pleasure seeking. I'll give you an example. We accept that people watch adult content. There's no shame. In actual fact, there should be a great amount of shame. It should be very strange and uncomfortable as a man to watch another male's phallus as he has intercourse. It should be disgusting to you, but you've been desensitized. I'll give you another example. When you experience true purity, certain things will bother you. I was, some time ago, I was about to lay down with a young lady, and I put on some R&B, and I was starting to get bothered by the fact that I'm listening to another dude's voice as I take down this chick. I was like, there only needs to be one dude's voice here. So, you might get conditioned to playing Genuine My Pony, when you stroke them out, but that's another dude in the room. And you get desensitized to that because the culture tells you it's okay. But in actual fact, it's not okay, and it's strange. And technology has made human beings very strange, and we're unaware of it. And we're so weird, like so many of us are so weird, that if a person who's healthy tells you about what's going on, you think they're weird. You're weird, but you think they're weird. That's the situation we're in. Truly, it's bizarre. And we don't think anything of it. Thank you for that question, Jalen. Carrying on.
And you can see them moving things. What would they be moving around the nuclear areas? I wonder. You think they're moving the what are they moving here? It's most likely going to be that nuclear material, because their plan there, you can see they have prepared for ages.
But for anyone that doesn't know, we've got leaders that have different levels of sort of information and knowledge here. I'm going to try and summarize this and butcher it in the most.
Yes, but possibly even with the 60%, Stephen, it depends on just how good their scientists are, and we're not really sure. So there's somewhere, we're at 60%, we're already very worried. You go to 90, it's a gimme.
And then the United States dropped these big bunker buster bombs. They flew those B-2 airplanes in, dropped these bombs, smashing up the site.
Yep.
And then it felt like it was over. And then the United States went into negotiations with Iran to try and get some kind of deal done.
To get the material we didn't get.
Oh, okay.
You see, why are we even talking to them? If this is really a...
So what this fellow is letting us know is that the Donald and the American administration has been lying. They've been lying about their efficacy in war. And he says, we completely destroyed all of the nuclear sites. And then they turn around just months later and say, oh, we have to stop them from developing nuclear weapons. And it's like America has no memory. Donald Trump also said that everyone would get a check, a $2,000 check from the tariffs revenue. Did you guys remember that? Where the heck is the check at? I remember that. And I remember it because I was angry when I was paying tariffs. I was like, well, if you give me a $2,000 tariff check, you still owe me money because I've paid like damn near $4,000 in tariffs. The guy has done an atrocious job.
Obliterated the program. Why are we bothering to talk to them? What exactly are we talking about here? Do you notice the inconsistency here? So when you say we thought it was over, that's the public. Okay. Now the public, you need to understand, they're very busy people. They're paying for the price of eggs. Okay. So they're not supposed to be able to be up on this.
It's a good point I've never thought about.
Yeah.
Why would we be talking to them?
Why are we talking to them, you see? So right from the get-go. And by the way, all of it's the Israelis. We have a thing called the Defense Intelligence.
See, look at this. Brody wrote, the court has forced them to refund the tariffs. Send me a link to an article that tells me how much Trump has refunded tariffs, because I've not gotten a check. And I've paid a lot of tariffs. In fact, I shut down a number of businesses over tariffs. I've not received a check. I don't think anyone's received a check. You see something in the news doesn't mean that it happened. If it did happen, let me know. And I appreciate you sharing that, but I don't believe that. I believe that was said because I heard that too. But there's a difference between something being said and then something happening. And so often the public gets fooled based on what is said. Shout out to Irvin, writes, Peace of the Saints tuition. Came in via Venmo. I appreciate you. And shout out to the confirmed Saints. Irvin's confirmed. And what you guys have to remember is that, the public gets really taken away by what is said because average everyday people are not liars, and they're certainly not strategic liars. And so they assume, similar to themselves, because we mostly can't see past our nose, that similar to themselves, they're not going to go around lying to people, certainly not lying on videotape in front of millions, in front of the world. But this is what our political class does. Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, and Caroline Levitt, and Donald Trump, chief liar among all of them. Shout out to Luis, comes in via PayPal, writes, I'm glad you're noting the zestiness of the podcaster. Thank you for this knowledge. Been buried in work. I'm glad to catch a live for a change. Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here. And shout out to all the hardworking men and women, especially the men. Tony writes, Peace of the Saints, TD. Now also acknowledge John came in via PayPal. He writes, I haven't had the opportunity to watch anything on the current live session yet, but I wanted to express my support and appreciation for you taking the time and having the willingness to share your wise perspective on important topics with us. That really means a lot. I thank you for that, and you are very welcome. And, I can't lie, it takes a lot of energy just to start these kind of lives because I find it to be so saddening. Yes, I was trapped in a war zone recently, and I did talk about that publicly. But before that, I've been to war zones. And of course, I mostly went in through safe, predictable transit and out through safe, predictable transit. But I know that war is truly an ugly thing, and it saddens me to see that it is, in our current world, something that is nonstop. And because I know the horrors of war close up, it just takes a lot of energy to talk about this stuff. But I know that you all need to know, because if you do not know, the wars will go on longer and they will be more numerous because the devils run all of the governments of the world for the most part. And it is the populace, which is more kind-hearted, more effeminate, the masses that will put a stop to this and then hopefully in short order revolt, because it is that time.
Agency. Their reports that were done after the bombing were leaked, and they all say the same thing, which is we created holes. We probably shook these underground chambers. We're not sure because we had no eyeballs on that, but we have no idea where that enriched uranium is. And we have good reason to worry they got them out, because we actually have a satellite picture that shows 2 days before we bombed Fordo, there's a bunch of trucks moving stuff out. Gee, what do you think you might move out? They're actually, they've dispersed the material even before we hit the site.
And then we attack.
So we're talking about artificial intelligence. Let me say something to you that might be, I don't know, you guys might be, Marquette, you're paranoid. No. What if the American government and or the Israeli government sent this guy onto this very popular podcast to plant information that they want the public to believe? What if? That'd be a good investment. This podcast gets a lot of views. It seems as though this guy is acting outside of government control. So he'd be the perfect guy to send in there. He has the expertise. What if they sent him in to plant information to prepare your mind for certain things?
Yep.
The United States attacks in February 2026, which is
February 2026, February 2028. We start again, this time with regime change. Notice we don't go even after the fissile material, the nuclear material. We don't know where it is.
So for the average person would think if you take out the supreme leader, then the war is over.
Now, one thing I wish the podcaster would have asked is, what technology do you have to detect enriched uranium? What technology do you use? Did you use intelligence? And I forget what that organization is called NIEA. I forget. It's some bogus organization. Did you use their reports to identify where the enriched uranium is? Did you use intelligence? Do you have some technology to see this kind of material? That's a meaningful question. And if you do have technology that can see this material from satellites or what have you, what technology would the Iranians use to block your ability to see? And here's another thing that won't get discussed. How many countries border Iran? How many different nations? Which of them are friendly? Could Iran export any amount of that uranium? If it were exported, how dangerous could it be? These are critical questions that are completely unanswered.
Drop the bomb on the person and the war is complete.
Yeah, so let's talk about your Jenga thing here, because what I find, Stephen, so keep in mind, I am advising, teaching some of the most brilliant minds in the country. Now, a lot of these smart people, though, they don't know that they've been given like 1-inch deep briefings, maybe even 1-sentence briefings. So their image is often like this, and it's wrong. This is what they think the regime looks like. And they think that because they've been given, they basically have been consuming, probably for years, 1 or 2 sentences about the structure. They know there's a supreme leader. They might know there's nuclear facilities, missiles command. And so it looks like, oh my goodness gracious, that if you could just simply take out the right node, you would be able to make this whole thing fall down, okay? But that's the wrong image, Stephen. This is the way smart people think. The problem is, this is a false image of most regimes, even the bad ones, and certainly the Iranian regime. Let me just focus on the Iranian regime. The Iranian regime is more like a matrix. It's not brittle the way this is. So you can...
Actually, I already described this earlier, so I'm just going to skip through.
Teams going back to before World War I.
Okay, I want to ask a dumb question.
Yep.
When they took out the supreme leader in Iran, who's going to give out the instructions?
The adaptive system adapts and fills in the holes.
It's not an adaptive system. It's a system where there's prearranged succession. He's making it sound more complex than it needs to be. It's just prearranged succession. It's not that deep.
Religious edicts. It's like a papal. He is actually issuing religious doctrine, and that's called a fatwa. And as a religious doctrine, he issued 2 that said Iran should not have nuclear weapons. The guy we killed was one of the guardrails against nuclear weapons.
How does that? He was developing them in his country?
No, he's developing the enrichment material. They hadn't been fashioned yet that we know of as nuclear weapons. Okay, so
you'll notice there are certain ideas that never get engaged, which is the idea that why does America, the only country that's ever used nuclear weapons, get to decide who gets them? Why is there no discussion about the fact that Israel has nuclear weapons illegally? And then there's the third question of Iran has been peaceful for half a century. Why are we so concerned with them getting nuclear weapons? It's been Israel that's been attacking everybody. These conversations have not been broached, and for that reason, you have to wonder, like, is the blackish guy a plant? Is the white guy the plant? Did the government send him? Did the blackish guy get a check from the United States government? And this is not beyond what has happened. We found out that the Joe Biden administration was cutting checks to popular media and broadcasters, podcasters. We also have recently saw that Israel's coming under fire because they hired a lot of influencers to spread propaganda and they didn't even pay their bills, which ironically goes along with stereotypes. So, I kind of wonder about this stuff. It doesn't seem quite right. The questions that are obvious are not being asked. We're talking about Iran's nuclear capacity, and they don't even have any nuclear weapons, but we're not talking about Israel's nuclear capacity, and they do have nuclear weapons illegally. Shout out to Crazy Grinder writes, what do you think about Bekele's El Salvador model? Is it applicable to bigger states? Theoretically, yes. Theoretically, yes. But what I would say of places like El Salvador and even Singapore, these small states, or even Qatar, places that are small but well managed, increasingly so in the case of El Salvador, for them to actually exist as an autonomous entity, they have to form military alliances. The Africans, aside from the Sahel states, have failed to form a meaningful military alliance. The Gulf states failed to form a meaningful military alliance. They thought that they were in alliance with the United States, but that's impossible if the United States is in an alliance with Israel. And I don't know how the game theorists didn't put that one together. But yes, potentially that could apply. Anything that you do successfully at a small scale theoretically could be blown up. But the most important thing for any nation state is autonomy or sovereignty. And you cannot maintain that unless you maintain superior firepower, or you're integrated into a military structure that can protect you through the confederacy of the weak, which no doubt El Salvador, Qatar, Singapore, these kind of micro-states are weak states for a variety of reasons.
Worried about, again, this enrichment going from 5% to 20% to 60%. But they hadn't actually taken that next step, which is more of an engineering step to develop the nuclear weapon. Now we took out the person who at the very tippy top was balancing the hawks and doves, and he had decided for decades to issue these fatwas. He did it not just once, but twice. His son, who took over, the new supreme leader, no fatwa yet. That fatwa died with this guy. So will the new leader come in? It's not clear. He's got the religious authority to do anything.
The contradiction, comedy, and hypocrisy of the West is extraordinary. You see, this gentleman is saying that we killed the supreme leader, who was the guardrail against nuclear weapons in Iran, because he issued a fatwa, a religious order, that there should be no nuclear weapons. Now we have to be worried that the new supreme leader might get into nuclear weapons. So we got to attack these guys. But the irony is that you attacked the last supreme leader because of nuclear weapons. So they don't make sense. It's like their lies are incoherent. It's really sad, because it always points back to the same thing, that these people are flat out evil. It just keeps going back to the same thing. If you just look at them and say to yourself, whatever you say is always going to add up to you stealing from others, be it their life, their dignity, or their land, then you will understand these people. Because what he said, frankly, doesn't make sense. He said, before there was a guy who was the supreme leader, he stopped Iran from making nuclear weapons. We were scared of Iran having nuclear weapons, so we killed the guy who's stopping Iran from having nuclear weapons. Now there's a new guy, and we think that he might make nuclear weapons, so we should probably take him out too. So come on, stuff doesn't even make sense. Ladies and saints, if you want to keep it going, I'm more than happy to do so. Send in your support using the information below on this banner or in the description of the video. We'll keep it rocking. Or if you guys are like, hey, Marquette, enough knowledge for me, then we'll carry on with our beautiful lives. And if you haven't, definitely hit that button at this time. All right, let's see if we're going to keep this rocking and rolling or if we shall carry on with a beautiful life. Shout out to Chris. Looks like he just became a member at peaceofthesaints.com. We welcome you warmly within this thing of ours. May I also acknowledge, he writes, keep church going. Shout out. Wayne writes, keep rocking, brother. Served between 2000 and 2005. I did 2 tours in Iraq as an artillery soldier. My head is still at war, yet I want, man. And shout out to the soldiers, boy, because listen, the sound of projectile is deafening and disturbing and soul shaking. That stuff just lingers. And I was around it for very long in any of the instances I've been around it. So, man, if you have done any time in warfare, especially as a real soldier in an active war zone, you're built different. You are built differently. Shout out, may God protect all of our warriors. We're going to carry on a little bit and wind this one down. And thank you to all the folks who are here with us. It is really a pleasure. It's my pleasure to have you guys here for this most serious of topics. It is my honor to have your support. And I am greatly humbled because we could be talking about any variety of nonsense. This is a serious topic. It requires thoughtful people. And I appreciate you giving me the privilege of being able to discuss real things. And so thank you for those who support it, those who hit the like button. Let's go ahead and wind her down in a beautiful way.
Anything like what his father did. This is a very different world, and he's known to be way more aggressive than his father. He's been in charge of the Bazi, basically the police that like to go and kill the protesters. He's been the guy who's been very, very strongly supporting, if not leading.
So he calls them the Bazi, and he stated the police that like to take the lives of the protesters. And if this reminds you of any leader in history in terms of his come up, it kind of gives a little shout out to Vladimir Putin, who used to be a part of the KGB, which is kind of like a bit like the FBI in the United States, and was kind of like an intelligence focused organization. And then he moved into leadership in the Russian state. And that skill set that you get when you're ahead of the intelligence, domestic police apparatus is a very unique skill set. You have true insights into the psychology of individuals and the behavior of crowds and organizations and mobs. And so you really know how to control. And that is essentially fundamentally what government is about. It's about control, unfortunately. That's why increasingly I despise government, all of them. So anyways, he suggests that the United States government, the Trump regime, has successfully replaced a bad guy with a badder guy. Now, we only say bad guy in the sense of the American propaganda. We know in actual fact, these are probably the closest things we can get to a good guy in American in a government context.
Leading that particular effort.
And last night it was announced that he has been appointed as the new leader of
He's
Iran.
the new supreme leader. Okay?
Did Trump expect this?
I think that he expected it because he kept trying to talk the Iranians out of it. This is what he meant by last week when President Trump was saying that he wanted not this guy. He specifically said not the son. And then he had a problem.
The funny thing, and this is on the part of both of them, that they keep assuming that there's some level of pain that the Trump administration or Donald Trump as an individual is experiencing based on his shortcomings or failings in war. As long as they achieve the ultimate aim of doing Bibi Netanyahu's bidding, then all is well. Trump's family is not perishing in this war. Trump is not losing money. He's in fact grown his net worth astronomically. So the idea that Trump is like, oh no, Brody is golfing. He's at the country club. He's at Mar-a-Lago. He's at Epstein Island. He's not in the trenches. And that is just, it's just the bizarre thing that these two individuals, neither of whom are commoners, are suggesting that Trump cares about everyday people and their sufferings or their opinions. It's like, come on, bruh. This is ludicrous. And class is such a strong thing that, based on class, we have remarkably different experiences. For example, I'd be in UAE to this day getting bombed if I was a middle class or lower. I'd be damn near dead. I had to pay to extract myself. It was a lie. Hegseth and Caroline Levitt and Trump, they claim they're getting Americans out of there. The only Americans they're getting out are Americans who are in Abu Dhabi, Americans who are in Dubai. Now, mind you, there were more in Dubai, of course. Dubai's more popular, better reputation among those who like glitz and glamour. But the Americans in Dubai have been told to use commercial means, which are largely non-existent, or to shelter in place, or to use trusted ground transportation, like to where and how. And that contradicts shelter in place. So basically, you're stuck there. There have been a very small number of flights leaving Abu Dhabi. Americans are still largely stranded. This is the story they're not telling you. This is the truth.
Because people kept pushing him, and they said, okay, well, if you don't like the son, who would you pick? And he said, well, it is a problem because when we killed the supreme leader, we killed around the leader 20 or 30 others who we actually thought were better. So we actually took out the best alternatives when we killed when the supreme leader was killed. And so everybody's scratching their heads going, what are we talking about here? So we actually helped by killing the competitors to the sun. We made it more likely the sun. And so what I'm trying to explain, Stephen, is this adapts.
And the viciousness of the Western leadership class, they do this stuff, but it's funny to them. You know, it's funny to them because at the end of the day, you know, he might make it seem like they made a mistake, but there's no mistake in as much as, okay, you took out the supreme leader. You would have wanted guy 3, 4, and 5 in the hierarchy to take leadership, but you accidentally killed them. They were collateral damage. But that's fine because even though the number 2 guy is even more oppositional to American power and Israeli imperialism, just take him out too. As far as the West is concerned, they will fix their mistakes with more murder, more bloodshed. That's their position, is they're going to kill their way out of the situation. And if you don't understand that, then you have a fundamental misunderstanding of the nature of Western governments. I mean, right now, let's talk about 2 things that are almost never mentioned. Let's talk about Cuba and the way the Cubans are sitting in darkness without access to imported medicines, without access to electricity and petrol. And they're also starting to starve. It's like, why? What's the reason for that? Okay, cool. Now let's pretend that's all okay because that's what the whites in America do. So that's chill. Now let's look at Haiti. In Haiti, you have a situation where there are drones, and I call them killer drones, and they're flying around bombing civilian populations. So when the whites claim that you have failed states where you find black people, you never find violence where you find black people unless there was a white hand driving it at some point, past or present. Those Haitians, those impoverished Haitians don't have drone military technology. Come on. So you should be asking yourself, well, why are the whites going in there adding fuel to the flame? To what end? Except black suffering. I really couldn't think of any other explanation as to why they're doing that. It is very bizarre and disturbing, but this is what they do. I mean, the evidence is there. There's no logical explanation as to why the United States has to meddle in Haitian affairs.
Okay, so that you're not really taking these.
It's also bizarre, too, because then you'll get people leaving Haiti. Why are you leaving Haiti? Because America paid for killer drones in Haiti, and I don't want to get killed in Haiti. Then they're like, well, we don't want you here. It's like, well, goddamn. Stop turning my home into a hellhole. Huh? Shout out to Christopher supporting the work using the Stripe link. May also acknowledge Idris, who just became a member. Shout out to Tony, came back. He writes, just training while listening to you. Please continue, big dog. Hey, shout out to the folks getting that work in today. I got mine in early. It's a beautiful thing. Make sure you hit your weights too, man. Don't forget about that. Shout out to Brad, came in supporting the work via Venmo.
Pieces out. You're rearranging them, and you are
I also want you guys to notice what these 2 individuals are doing. And it's very well orchestrated and it's quite subtle. You might be watching 2 grown men playing with a Jenga set and think, oh, that's really cool. But they're actually using pedagogical techniques to teach and brainwash you and keep you engaged and entertained in a conversation that would otherwise be a little bit dry. And the reason that they're doing that is because they view you, the audience, as imbeciles with a low attention span. That's why you have a grown man with a PhD playing with essentially large Legos. You should be like, why is this nigga playing with Legos? He's playing with Legos because he thinks you're an idiot and it's going to keep you engaged because you have low IQ. Yeah. That's what they think of you. They're like, well, we need to play with Legos to keep these people engaged. And that should kind of get you mad. That should kind of get you mad that a dude with a PhD is playing with Legos in front of you. This is the world we're dealing with. And when Trump says make America great again, I know that he's a liar because he's not trying to make American education great again. This is all you hear me talk about: education, culture. These are investments into the people. That's why the training center, which is, I think it's linked in the description, the training center that I'm looking to build, and shout out to all the people who have supported it. It's about education. It's about education, man. The quality of the people are not great unless they're well educated, they're knowledgeable, they're skilled. But instead, they'd like to lower all of you to the point of, I have to play with Legos for you to comprehend and pay attention. It's really sick and sad, guys. It is sick and sad. Someone had emailed asking about the link for this particular shirt. I'll see if I can post it on the chat, on the comments, but this is the link for the shirt that I'm wearing, the boxing t-shirt. It's a heavy tee. It's a heavyweight tee.
Moving up, in this case, you're moving up.
The next supreme leader?
Well, there's the supreme leader, but what we're not showing here, you're seeing the target sets that are being discussed. You're not seeing the Revolutionary Guard.
What is that?
That is part of the army. Iran has 1 million men in arms. 1 million. That's as many as we have in our 300 million people. They have 92 million. They have 1 million in arms. And about 150 or 200,000 of them are what are called the Revolutionary Guards. These are the most aggressive, the most well-trained. These are the most dedicated to the regime. The son who we just took over is the prime candidate for that group. So when we took out a link here, it's not just being revolved out the leader. You may kill the leader, but you get in its place a harder regime, the new company.
The funny thing that you guys may not notice, and I hope you do, is that this guy is repeating himself a lot. Sometimes this happens maybe as you age or if you lower IQ. I don't think that is why he's doing it. I think he has a propaganda goal, and every idea that he's put forward, he has tripled down on repeating it. That's why I'm able to skip through and you don't get lost, because he's not saying a lot of ideas. He's repeating the same ideas.
Like, let's say you take over, there's a company that's in shambles.
Right? He keeps re-emphasizing what happens when you take out the leader. He's been talking about that for like 10 minutes.
In 1986, he lashes back and coalition, you see. And they may well do that.
Why would they want to break that? Why?
Because
my friends are escaping Dubai at the moment. I've got a friend staying in my house in Cape Town because he doesn't.
Winning the escalation war. So it just came out just a few hours before we came on. And what's happening here is I call it horizontal escalation, because what they're doing now is they're using drones, mostly a few missiles, but mostly drones. This was almost all missiles, no drones. And they're using their drone capacity, which they have a lot of, and it's precision. These drones are like precision guided weapons. They go right to the target. And what they're trying to do is break this coalition.
For anyone that can't see at the moment, they counted with horizontal escalation against
Can you confirm? Can you hear me? Give you guys a chance to put a 1 in the chat if you can hear me. Put a 2 in the chat if you cannot hear me. 1, fantastic. Back bracken, let's roll.
Saudi Arabia, the UAE.
The coalition that had been formed against them, they're trying to break the coalition, you see. And they may well do that.
Why would they want to break that? Why?
Because
my friends are escaping Dubai at the moment. I've got a friend staying in my house in Cape Town because he doesn't want to be in Dubai.
Because they want these countries to kick the Americans out of their country.
Okay.
Get rid of the embassies, get rid of the bases. If you can, then we don't have the platforms to plaster them. You see.
And again, the right questions are not being asked. So I want to know, do you think there's a chance of Iran attacking Mecca and Medina? Will they attack the Kaaba? Is that off limits?
These are our basically ground-based aircraft carriers.
I thought they were attacking Saudi Arabia, for example, because that will make Saudi Arabia call Trump and say, listen, stop, please. We're losing our tourism. We're shutting our airports.
Well, they do want to, they are threatening the tourism, hitting the economic nodes. They're hitting hotels. They're hitting the airports. What they are trying to do is by threatening tourism, which varies from 5% to 10% of the GDP of these countries. This is not trivial amounts here. They're basically trying to drive wedges between these countries and America. And America right now, I don't see any movement through Congress.
Now, here's the thing. This is true, but obvious. So we don't need him to report out on that because we already knew that. What we do need, however, is for him to clarify, is it working? How long will it take to work? How much will the Gulf states sacrifice? What would a new order look like in that region? We need some prediction. Right now, he's not giving prediction, he's giving observation, which is useless because these things we already know. It's very clear what their strategy is. Is it working? He's now about to talk about Congress, but isn't Congress supposed to give sanction a war? We're already in a war and Congress never sanctioned it. So is it even worth talking about Congress? They don't exist.
Where is this $100 billion going to the region to make up for their lost tourism? I don't remember seeing that bill come through Congress last week. So I'm just putting it a little humorously to point out, these countries are losing a fair bit right now, and that tourism may not come back for a while.
I've got friends that have moved.
Yeah.
I've got friends that, one of my friends was thinking about leaving, is now in my house in Cape Town, and he's been there for 5 years. He's leaving and he's going to move to America. I've got so many friends that have called me.
And imagine that we have 500,000 American citizens here, and we have the State Department on CNN. Call this number. We'll help you escape.
It's even the media in the UK. You see it. It's like they're showing, like the BBC is showing like evacuations of UK citizens as they're being greeted in the airport, putting microphones.
So this is putting a lot of pressure here, and there's something else that's not widely known, which is there's a big gap between what.
Did anyone notice he didn't mention how many Americans have escaped? Did anyone notice that he didn't go into that piece or acknowledge the fact that that number is often never answered? It's curious. And those are the kind of things that makes me wonder, like, is this guy still working for the government right now?
The leaders of the countries want, willing to support the U.S. and Israel and their publics. You see, this coalition that's been built against Iran here is not clearly going down well with publics. These are publics. They may not like Iran. They may be Sunni and Iran Shia, but they don't want to be part of an Israeli expansion plan where Israel is going to conquer more and more territory and so forth. And so this is where the soft underbelly here of this isn't just about the tourism. That's the short term. The longer term is bottom up pressure. Sadat.
What I want you guys to observe right now is that they're defining the difference between Sunni and Shia, and this is an important distinction to be aware of. You really don't need this much text. You can describe it in a sentence. It's two different sects of Islam. That's it. But what they did not put in the text below his video is the greater Israel project and describing what that is, because I think that's important. I don't think I've seen it yet. Maybe they'll put it up. Hopefully they do. That's a critical thing to understand.
He was a leader of Egypt in the 1970s. He cut a deal with Israel. It's called the Camp David Accords, peace for land. But it was very favorable. Well, after Sadat did that, the president of Egypt, in 1981, in a military parade, his own security guards at the military parade marched with their guns, came up to his place, and they shot him dead. So this is the real world here. So this is very, very dangerous for these leaders. Now, that's stage two. Now, what happens if we decide to have one of these limited ground deployments here? Because after all, we still don't know where this material is.
What does that mean? So for anyone that doesn't know anything about the war, what does a ground deployment mean? Because I saw Trump being asked about this on the plane yesterday, and he didn't seem to deny it was going to happen.
It means you try to control a limited amount of space, say the space around Fordo or the nuclear facility that you bomb.
He mentioned Sadat, and what he is suggesting is that certain Arab regimes, there's a disconnect between the government and the population. And that's been consistent since that time to the present. However, I will add, especially in the Egyptian situation, the Egyptians, characters, not impressed. This is like the least impressive place in the Middle East. Maybe Jordan is less impressive. And we're not talking about historical monuments. Both of them have great history, but we're talking about the people and the culture. And one thing that we have to be able to estimate for is the change in sentiment and religiosity of populations, especially as time goes on and Israeli propaganda propagates. And so I think that that's a measure that he has not addressed, which is to say, how much has sentiment in Egypt changed? What about religiosity in Egypt? And Egypt has done a lot of deals with Israel, and they're not the only regime. And understanding how water rights and the flow of the Nile and all of these critical resources and collaborations with Israel impact the ability to cooperate today and moving forward, and how much the populations in these regions understand how Israel has made themselves a linchpin in the region. So that is a discussion that he probably should dive into a little bit deeper than to simplify it and make it seem as though the Egyptians of Sadat's time are the same ones as today. I mean, that'd be as ludicrous as me suggesting that the Arabs that were around during the time of Gamal Abdel Nasser, when you had pan-Arab movement, which was a real thing at a time, as though the Arabs are still like that today, when the Arabs today are very fragmented and they argue among themselves, even the Sunni.
In June, and you would send the, say, 82nd Airborne in to control the space.
What's this? I don't know what any of this stuff means.
Oh, I see. So 82nd Airborne is a division that we have that's especially equipped to go into hostile area and land and control, say, airports, control space. Think about controlling all the size of LAX.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to control LAX, you bring in the 82nd Airborne. They will have 5,000 men and women, not just guys now, and they will come in and they will control that space LAX. But they will also be doing this probably not for a day, not for even a week. They're going to have to spend weeks and weeks to search for that material because we don't know where it is, and it's all deeply buried, and a lot of the stuff has been the
Oh man, I've been muted. I don't know how long I was on mute. Can somebody in the chat tell me how long I was on mute? Man, that sucks. You see, the problem is that I have it filtered to see only the super chats. So can you guys tell me how long I was on mute? 30 seconds. Ooh, that's rough. Yeah, I have it filtered to show me only the super chats. So when you guys tell me I'm on mute sometimes and it's not a super chat, I can't see it. Boy, that's really rough. What I was saying, though, to summarize, is that he suggests that it'll be a long time, potentially, that ground forces would have to occupy. And the truth is, it doesn't have to be a long time, because the United States and or Israel may already know where the enriched uranium is. That's number one, because that's classified information if they do know. Then number two, they may have intelligence assets in Iran who know, or intelligence assets, assets that can be cultivated that will share the information. Or number three, they can torture the information out of the military personnel that they find in Iran who have that knowledge. And there's no doubt that the methods of torture are very well known to the Israelis and the Americans. So it doesn't have to take a long time, but the only thing that is really worth considering with regards to American ground forces are the casualties. There will undoubtedly be casualties, and there will be significant casualties. And I am not beyond the idea that the United States would put ground soldiers there for the very purpose of radicalizing opinion in America for the war, which is to say sacrificing soldiers for the very purpose of bringing forward an even bigger force to actually compete. So the initial 5,000 Marines that they may send in, they're essentially sending in a portion of them to be slaughtered, only so that the American public gets mad because the average overweight white person in Wisconsin is an imbecile. Then they'll say, no, we got to pound these guys. So then Trump's like, okay, we're going to hit them hard. Then he sends in a huge force to just completely tear the place up. So I wouldn't be surprised at all. But we know that the first force that goes in there is going to get devoured. There's just no doubt about it. They're going to get eaten up badly. There's no doubt about it. Anyways, carrying on.
Entrances have been blown up. So this means long-term presence there. You might also take some of the oil fields to cut off some of the money here for the regime. That is where that book comes in.
Do you think that's likely that America will put boots on the ground, American soldiers in Iran?
I think it's at least 50-50, if not immediately. So people keep expecting the escalation to be continuous. And then when there's a pause, as there was between June and February, they think, oh, it's over. I'm going to go now worry about something else. And then believe me, there's plenty else to worry about. So we got Minneapolis, we got plenty to worry about here, even with violence. But that's not how escalation operates. Escalation can have a ratchet effect that's spaced out by months of what seems like peace, only to come right back, and you're stuck in that escalation momentum.
Which is what we've seen.
Which is exactly what we've seen. And for the reason I'm telling you, we don't know where that nuclear material is. That has been the $64,000 weakness in this entire idea of using air power, not just in the last 10 days.
What if we do know where the nuclear material is and we don't care, because our goal is not to find the nuclear material, but rather to eradicate the Iranian leadership, to eradicate their intelligentsia, and to reduce their fighting population and fighting spirit, which means that it's irrelevant to know where that nuclear material is, because that's not the true mission.
Going back to June, it's not just even about the regime change, it's about how are you going to get that nuclear material out. We had a deal, this deal with Obama. Trump did not like it, but with that deal, that held, and Iran took out almost all, virtually just only a tiny bit was left, not enough for a bomb, all out of the country. And we watched it, we monitored it. We had 24/7 cameras to monitor this. We had human on-site inspections to monitor this. 2018, Trump just ripped it up, walked away unilaterally, and from that point on, it's been pedal to the metal by Iran in upgrading that enriched uranium. And that's how you got to that material that would be enough for the 16 bombs. And right now, we don't know where that is.
So
yeah.
Stage one is...
Okay, stage one, you are beginning the escalation trap. In this case, it's a smart bomb trap, but because it's with smart bombs, where you have tactical success, near perfect. Call it 100%.
I want you all to know that these people running this podcast think that you're imbeciles. I sat through many lectures at Northwestern, at the University of California, Berkeley, at the Johns Hopkins University, at Caltech. You never saw a goddamn PhD pulling out flashcards. Never once. They think you guys are idiots. And I would like to put forward my theory one last time that I truly believe Israel's goal is to drag the entire region into war so that the region destroys itself. Because remember, geographically, Israel is actually quite far away from Iran, pretty much as far as you can get unless you're Egypt. And that makes it harder for Iran to land on target, more convenient for Iran to attack its neighbors. So Israel allows the region to be destroyed, knowing that America is going to keep being a piggy bank, even as far as rebuilding Israel. And so it's to Israel's advantage to drive this warfare among its neighbors and let them defeat each other. And then Israel comes over and cleans up and takes the land. I think that's what's going on. Very clever.
It really is. But that doesn't mean you have strategic success. Tactical success plus strategic failure. Then that strategic failure weighs on you over time because the enemy still got the thing that you wanted to get in the first place. Now you do stage two, which is regime change. Because after all, you've already hit the targets. You can make the rubble bounce, but what more? That's why we didn't bomb them in the last 10 days. We might go back and bomb Fordo some more, okay? But we already bombed it. So there's no way watching the bubble. But now we're at stage two because what are your options? The only other option is, well, let me get rid of the regime because then the regime I will control and the next regime will just give us the material. That's not working now. And you hear today, Trump is dancing, trying to figure out what to say. He doesn't want to say the war's over. Okay. He doesn't want to say the war's going on. But the bottom line is he won't even be clear about why we're fighting the war anymore. And I'm telling you, there's a real problem. The nuclear material is still there and it can still be fashioned into those 16 bombs over time. So this is
Thank you for the heads up. Okay, so this is really curious because it really reeks of propaganda in as much as the guy that's interviewing him is wearing a t-shirt. He's black, not white. He's young, not old. And so he does not look like he's a part of the government team. He looks like the outsider when in fact, once you cross, this guy has to be worth 20, 30 million minimum, the black guy, blackish guy. So he is a part of the system because at that level of wealth, you are a part of the system. The system's allowing you to operate. And we find that consistently, he's not asking the most meaningful questions. And he has not questioned the logical loop. The loop of Iran has never developed nuclear weapons in 50 years. And they could have. They have great scientists. They could have. They have chosen not to in 50 years. So now that you guys are bombing them and destroying them, you're incentivizing them to develop nuclear weapons. Why don't you stop doing that? Stop attacking Iran. Trust that they're going to continue doing what history suggests that they would do, which is maintain a peacetime civilian usage, energy-focused nuclear program, just like Germany. Skip out the Germany part. I don't feel like elaborating on that. But He's not asking that. He's only asking like the small clarifying questions and the questions related to definition, like, oh, you said B-2 bomber. What's a B-2 bomber? Like, but he's not asking the more meaningful, deeper questions about the overall logic. And that's why it reeks of propaganda.
Where then you get this horizontal escalation where now they've really working on this, because now it's a long war.
They start attacking their neighbors.
And try to make it the consequences go on for months. So just imagine, when are your friends exactly going to move back? So let's say the war is over tomorrow. Are they moving back tomorrow?
No.
And when was last time, have you started to plan for your next vacation in Dubai? I've been to Dubai.
I was planning speaking there in a month's time, but it's been cancelled already.
Well,
so.
just start to think about that. And, minor thing like a drone attack could suddenly come out of nowhere. You're not even, you think it's, I'm just trying to point out that this is the world now that a lot of people, this was a luxury market. This was the playground of the rich and famous here. This is really now changing, and it may come back a year or two from now, but it took 2 years for air travel to come back after 9/11. Just think about that.
Crazy.
Now, we haven't gotten to stage 3 yet, which gets to your girlfriend's point.
How do we move from stage 2 to stage 3?
Oh, well, because you still don't know where the nuclear material is.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have to move to stage 3 this week. We could do it a month from now, 6 months from now. The problem is we've now put in place a much more aggressive leadership, much more aggressive regime.
I'm definitely sold on the idea that this is propaganda. I'll tell you why. This guy keeps on emphasizing we put in a much more aggressive regime, much more aggressive leadership. What does it tell you? Well, now we're at threat. Now we Americans are under threat. The new regime's more aggressive. He keeps emphasizing that. This is why I think it's propaganda. I know it's propaganda. The Blackish guy refuses to say, okay, you got stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. How do we stop at stage 2? How do we end this? They speak of it with inevitability. Nothing's inevitable. He has not, he said, how do you get from stage 2 to stage 3? But he never once said, how do we stop at stage 2? How do we de-escalate? That's the most basic, obvious question. He's not asked it at all. It's so strange. Let me acknowledge via PayPal. Shout out to Mr. Maduro. He writes, off topic, I've been subscribed to your Patreon for a while, and I will switch to peaceofthesaints.com. If possible, can you bring back the Hefner black and gold robe? At that time, I couldn't buy it. Thank you for all you do. That's a cold, cold piece. The guy who made that, shout out to the saint in Florida, Dimitri, he may have his email address on there. Email me separately and let me know if his email address is on there. He might have some units. It'll probably never come back, but he may have existing units, and I'd be happy to connect you. Thank you for that note, and thank you for the support. And glad to see that you've come up. I love to see people prospering. It's a beautiful thing.
We've taken away some of the what may have been guardrails. We can't say for sure for the nuclear weapon. This new regime, much more likely, and we've given them every incentive to develop the nuclear bomb. We're killing them. So what exactly is their incentive? Their best way to survive is to have a nuclear weapon. And you'll say, well, we're going to kill them. Well, we're already killing them. So we've taken away their incentive not to have a nuclear weapon. So we will start to worry as each week goes by, not because we have great intel, not because our it's because of the opposite. We don't have the exquisite intelligence we had with the Obama deal to know we had frozen the program. Now that we have Swiss cheese at best, and what we will see in the holes of the Swiss cheese are indications of nuclear development. And that will make us worry, because what happens with the nuclear weapon? Is it going to go to Hezbollah? And is Hezbollah going to help put it in Haifa? What's going to happen with these? Are they going to give it to the Houthis? So these are the kind of worries we will have that will push us to the ground options. And that is with stage 3, the retaliation approaches the homeland.
Is that realistic?
If ISIS, with its 30 to 40,000, remember, ISIS was not a state. Iran is an actual state with 92 million people. So if ISIS can foment command-directed,
Yep, I'm 100% sure this guy is an agent of the United States government, and he's there to drive fear among the American public. He's now talking about Iran striking the United States. Iran is not even good at striking Israel. They have used their short-range weaponry on the Gulf states, which was aged, and their long-range weaponry does not have the same level of accuracy and conversion. The idea that they can fly projectile all the way over to the United States and accurately connect on critical targets in the most powerful country and well-defended country in the world, that's literally a world away from them, is utter nonsense. This guy is lying. He's exaggerating. He's driving fear, and he is a danger. And we have to understand that it is very strategic and intelligent to spread propaganda in this particular way. And we hear the concept of asymmetry of power. We have an asymmetry of knowledge right here. We have a very seasoned older white guy who has advised presidents talking to a young mixed dude who's probably from South Africa or something. I don't know. He just seems like another Trevor Noah, talking to a Trevor Noah clone. That's an asymmetry of knowledge. Very curious, very curious. He's not talking to the Iranian genius, Professor Morandi, who's very bright, well-spoken, and polite. He's talking to a podcaster who's not even American about all of these affairs concerning America. Yep, I don't think that's by accident. Anyways, shout out to Wayne. He writes, if we are resource grabbing, I grabbed up shares in 2 different lithium companies, steel, and our prison system a few years ago. Oh, that's a good one, the prison system. I always forget about that one. He writes, support for this high-level analysis. Keep it going, sir, and looking forward to tomorrow's stream. Got my popcorn ready. Oh, absolutely. For all of you guys who haven't subscribed here, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell. Tomorrow, I'll be breaking down why my friendship with Fresh and Fit has ended. And I'll go from the very beginning of how we came to know each other. And I'll expose all of the things that I've covered over for their benefit over the many years, over half a decade. Shout out to Casual Germ. He writes, I know this is a serious topic, but I look forward to the Iranian women refugees. Yeah, I mean, they're not bad. I think the Ukrainian refugees will be better. You heard me if that's how we talk it. Anyways, carrying on.
Inspired suicide attacks and other attacks in San Bernardino, just to kind of bring it a little bit closer to home here, across the United States. Paris, remember the big Paris attack? So why exactly is Iran not, ISIS was a lot weaker than Iran.
Do you think in Iran at the moment, they're working on that? They're working on a terrorist attack?
Well, I think that my work tells me that it's most likely to come with the presence of the ground forces by us. Doesn't mean it's a necessary condition, but it's just most likely. Russia in '96, with our help, we played a trick on them, assassinated the Chechen leader. It's a leader of its republic in Russia called Chechnya, Dudayev. Only 1 million people. And Russia killed the guy. And we actually have pictures of him seeing the missile hitting him, because we can put the cameras right in the nose cone. Then the new guy took over. His name was Baziev. And he launched, within 3 months, not the next week, Operation Jihad. And his Operation Jihad was much more vicious tactics. Kicked the Russian forces. Russia's a big country, almost 200 million people compared to this little province of 1 million. Kicked the Russians out after 3 months, launches waves of suicide attacks, massive kidnappings here. This really went on for years.
Did anybody notice that this fella just pointed out that we, the United States, the white ruling class, created a situation in Russia, a foreign country, to drive warfare and violence? How can anyone think these people are not evil? So bizarre. And they said that they watched it as though it was like entertainment to them. Truly sick. Just truly sick, these people.
And years. So when you say, are they planning it? I don't think it's quite right, Stephen. It's not like they have the detailed plan they're about to execute. They have the next wave of possibilities, which would come, I think, most likely with stage 2, so stage 3. So as this is expanding, as the war expands, it will go global.
Really?
You are already seeing it global with the supply chain, and you're seeing it with the oil. So that's already happening.
I already called it. We're in World War III. People are talking about, when is World War III going to start? Is it going to turn to a world war? We're already in a world war. That I already called.
So what Iran said today, the response to Trump's press conference today, that just literally happened before we came on, is, okay, we will allow Gulf states your oil tankers to come through if you kick the Americans out. So kick the Americans out and we'll let you pass.
If you don't.
If you don't, we got drones. So they didn't put that in there, but everybody knows they got drones.
And again, if you were explaining this to a 16-year-old,
yep.
Just to keep it super simple, there's this passageway across the water where a lot of...
Yeah. Anyways, ladies and saints, if you'd be kind enough to hit the like button when you get a chance, make some comments below, push this one out so people have a chance at knowing the truth. Not everyone has that chance because the truth is not valued. In some cases, it's just not known. It's certainly suppressed. It's been a pleasure to have this time to be here with all of you, spend this time learning together, growing together, building our relationship. If you haven't joined this movement, we certainly welcome you at peacetothesaints.com. Let us end this with our tradition, the Creed of the Assassin. Repeat after me with full conviction, knowing this is true of you. The Creed of the Assassin. I'm going to be who I truly am because I am remarkable. And I'm going to strive every moment to show the greatest part of who I am. Until next time, peace to the saints.